Chapter 3694. Xueshang's words made the few god kings fearful and uneasy. Everyone's emotions were complicated, but similar thoughts flashed through their minds. What a ruthless method! We just want to snatch the mineral resources, but Xueshang wants to exterminate the Taotai clan. He's too vicious. After today, the Taotai clan that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years will be completely erased. Xueshang's words have a hidden meaning. He can't wait to take control of the star-devouring grotto heaven. I wonder if he'll go back on his words when we split the loot? With that thought, the god kings of the four forces started to be on guard against Xueshang. It was already too late for them to deploy their forces and increase the number of reinforcements they had. The only thing they could do was to try their best to stay together in the upcoming operation. Otherwise, they might be plotted against and eliminated by Xueshang. Let's start the operation. Let's go. Xueshang was in high spirits. He waved his sleeves and gave the order. Then, the 6 god kings followed him and the right guardian and flew into the depths of the star-devouring grotto heaven. At the same time, the news of the dozens of guards guarding the entrance being killed also spread to the Taotai clan's camp. Thousands of houses and palaces of different heights were scattered in the area of 10,000 miles. They were all shrouded in a haze of fear. Although the 4,000 Taotai clan members had a certain level of strength, they were still in a state of panic and fear. They were running around in a panic. After all, the news said that 8 god kings had killed their way into the star-devouring grotto heaven. How could the Taotai clan not be terrified and desperate? The 2 Taotai clan elders guarding the star-devouring grotto heaven could still maintain their composure. The 2 of them split up. One of them led a large group of guards to calm the Taotai clan members and incite them to resist. Now that it was a matter of life and death for the Taotai clan, all the Taotai clan members had to unite to overcome their fear and work together to resist the invading enemies. The other elder led a large group of guards to activate the defensive formation and set up a defensive battle formation. Soon 2 Supreme King-level divine formations set up by Tao Yongsheng were activated and covered an area of 10,000 miles. Seeing the 2 layers of bloody light and dense starlight shield, the thousands of Taotai clan members were slightly relieved. In order to further raise the fighting spirit of their clansmen and overcome their depression and despair, the 2 elders did another thing. That was to invite the Grand Elder, who was in seclusion all year round and had almost been forgotten by everyone, to appear in front of the clansmen. In terms of age and seniority, this Grand Elder was even higher than Tao Yongsheng. He was the first divine king after the primordial era. He was an expert from the same generation as the Gold Source Dragon Emperor and the Sky Dragon Emperor. However, it was a pity that he was stuck at the late stage of the divine king realm for his entire life. He was unable to reach the peak. In terms of strength and foundation, he was a little stronger than Tao Yongsheng. It was just that he had already stepped down from his post for close to 10,000 years, and had long been forgotten by the Taotai clan. Only when he appeared at this moment did the thousands of clansmen remember this old Taishang elder, and their confidence instantly increased. In less than a quarter of an hour, the 2 elders and many deacons had arranged everything. The defensive formation was operating at full power. All the clansmen above the heavenly god realm joined the battle formation, waiting to protect their home and fight with their lives on the line. The white-haired Grand Elder propped up his aged body and held the blood-chilling divine spear. He stood in the sky and waited silently. The 2 middle divine king elders were also fully armed, wearing their armor and holding their swords, waiting for the arrival of the strong enemy. On the other side, in a wasteland 30,000 miles away from the Taotai clan's main camp, Ji Tianqing and Luoho Divine King were speeding. The Taotai clan's main camp was in the middle of the star-devouring grotto heaven. It was 100,000 miles away from the entrance. Ji Tianqing and Luoho Divine King entered the star-devouring grotto heaven and traveled 100,000 miles. However, they changed their direction slightly to avoid the main camp. Ji Tianqing's target was obviously the depths of the star-devouring grotto heaven. Luoho Divine King was a little confused, and asked through voice transmission, "Young master, I can understand why you avoided the Taotai clan's main camp and did not want to kill the thousands of people. However, along the way, there are many mineral veins in the wasteland and barren mountains. Aren't we here to snatch resources? How can you let us go?" Ji Tianqing smiled and explained, Snake Fu, you must have never been to the star-devouring grotto heaven before. That's why you said that. Indeed. Luoho Divine King nodded. Ji Tianqing continued, the star-devouring grotto heaven is not big, only a radius of 200,000 miles. The Taotai clan's main camp is right in the middle, about 100,000 miles away from the starry cliff in the north and the entrance in the south. However, before I came to the star-devouring grotto heaven, I already roughly observed it. 80% of the mineral veins here are in the depths of the grotto heaven, north of the main camp. From the south of the main camp to the entrance, although there are some mineral veins, they only account for about 20% of the total. Luoho Divine King thought for a while and asked, indeed. Could it be because of the terrain? The north of the main camp is closer to the vast starry sky, and it is nourished by the starlight, which is why there are so many mineral veins. However, the south of the main camp is less nourished by the starlight, so the resources are more barren. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, correct. If we are reluctant to leave the mineral veins on the way, not only will we waste time, we might also be discovered by Shueshang and the others. Since that's the case, I might as well give up on the south of the main camp and only plunder the north of the main camp for 80% of the resources. Wouldn't that save time and effort? Luoho Divine King gradually understood his meaning and nodded repeatedly in praise. Young master is indeed wise. Shueshang and the divine kings of the 4 factions do not know of our existence. They even thought that the wealth of the star-devouring grotto heaven belongs to them, and no one can snatch it away. Therefore they will not be in a hurry. They will definitely finish off the Taotai clan first, take control of the star-devouring grotto heaven, and then slowly plunder the cultivation resources. However, the Taotai clan still has several thousand clansmen after all. They will definitely put up a last-ditch struggle. Shueshang and those divine kings will definitely have to pay a certain price and spend a large amount of time before they can finish them off. And this period of time is enough for us to plunder 80% of the resources north of the main camp. Ji Tianqing revealed a gratified smile and said, that's right, you said everything correctly. However, you still forgot one thing. The Taotai clan also does not know of our existence, and will only resist Shueshang and the others with all their strength. Their attention will only be focused on the south of the main camp, and will not pay attention to us at all. Exactly so. Luoho Divine King immediately laughed heartily and clapped his hands in praise. Not seeing you for many years, young master, compared to back then, your actions are even steadier, and your thoughts are even more meticulous. Back then, Qinshan was infatuated with the sword Dao. What he walked was the path of using martial prowess to subdue people. The path of majesty and dominance. While the present Ji Tianqing was even more flexible and ever-changing. Sometimes bold and domineering, sometimes scheming and calculating, no longer as tense as back then. Although in terms of personal image, he was not as elegant and otherworldly as Qinshan, high and mighty. However, in this cruel world, only Ji Tianqing's way of doing things would allow him to live longer and go further. Alright, we should get to work. At this time, Ji Tianqing scouted out 2 star or veins hidden in the 2 mountain ranges ahead. He and Luoho Divine King split up and started casting their arts to excavate the ore veins. Chapter 3695. Star veins grew deep underground, fused with the earth and mountains. Ordinary people could only excavate and excavate bit by bit. It took a very long time to excavate the vein. Then they had to go through the process of cutting, sorting, washing and refining before they could obtain pure divine stones. But this was only for ordinary people. Ji Tianqing and God King Rahu were not ordinary people. God King Rahu's actions were simple and crude, but very efficient. He directly used a supreme ability, releasing countless blades of divine light that cut the entire vein, mountain and earth apart. Then he used a grappling technique to extract the entire vein from the ground and store it in a brand new interspatial ring. It only took 20 breaths of time to finish excavating the entire vein. However, this kind of excavation caused a huge commotion. Moreover, the earth and mountain had been excavated into an abyss-like pit. Even the vein was in its most primitive and crude state. On the other hand, Ji Tianqing's techniques and actions were clearly more complex and exquisite. He used the 5 elemental laws and the power of the earth to separate the vein from the mountain and earth. Then he cut the vein into several pieces and used divine power to wash away the impurities before digging it out of the ground. Although there were a few gaps in the ground, it did not have much of an impact and did not cause much of a disturbance. The entire vein was cut into several pieces, making it easier to store and store. Of course, he used about the same amount of time as God King Rahu. In addition to the two of them, there was also a fanatic who was passionate about mining. He was also busy underground. Without a doubt, this person was Yank. He was only a mid-level God King, far inferior to Jitianqing and God King Rahu in terms of strength. However, he had grasped the ability Jitianqing had imparted to him, and he was born with the ability to control the earth. He was very proficient in mining, washing, and refining. Usually, he only used 20 breaths of time to excavate an entire vein. However, the veins he excavated had already undergone preliminary purification and did not have many impurities. The ores he excavated were cut into pieces of equal size, making it easier to store and pile them up. Most importantly, there were no abnormalities on the ground where he had excavated the vein. Only the ground was empty. Such a miraculous method not only made Jitianqing feel gratified, it also surprised God King Rahu. Just like that, the three of them began an intense and orderly excavation in the north of the Taotai tribe's camp. The three of them excavated at an extremely fast speed. It was just that searching for veins took some time. Even so, in a short hour, the three of them excavated more than 20 veins. According to Jitianqing's estimation, this was only 10% of the resources north of the camp. If they wanted to dig out all the mineral resources north of the camp, it would take at least 4 to 5 hours. He couldn't help being slightly worried. After such a long time, Xueshang and those god kings had probably slaughtered the Taotai clan to the last person long ago, right? When he thought of this, he urged God King Luoho and Yanku to move faster. By Rahu, by Rahu. By Rahu, by Rahu. By Rahu, by Rahu. By Rahu, by God, by Rahu, by God. At the same time, Jitianqing also discovered some special resources and treasures along the way. For example, star-devouring flower, star spirit grass, 7-star treasure tree, and other rare treasures. Naturally, when he discovered these treasures, he took them all without hesitation. At the same time, outside the Taotai tribe's camp, there was an intense battle going on. The 2 layers of formation shield that enveloped a radius of 10,000 miles covered the ground like a sky curtain. Outside the shield, Xueshang and the 7 God King powerhouses occupied 8 positions respectively. They joined forces to attack the divine formation shield. The 8 God Kings were all very powerful. They had mastered all kinds of skills and secret skills. The surging divine light condensed into all kinds of lights and scenes. Like a flood, they poured down on the formation shield. Dark clouds covered the sky. Lightning flashed. Blood and fire filled the sky. There were swords, spears, and images of ancient fierce beasts pouncing down. But Xueshang and the rest were not stupid. The skills they performed were all concentrated on a certain part of the shield. They did not disperse their power. Loud rumbling sounds rang out incessantly as the protective barrier of the spirit array trembled from the bombardment. Divine light flashed explosively as if it couldn't bear the heavy burden. After all, the 2 defensive divine formations were set up by Tao Yongsheng himself. Although it was a king-level divine formation, it was simple and shallow. It was not profound enough. It was still okay for a short period of time. It could block the fierce attacks of Xueshang and the rest. But after a long time, the 2 layers of shield would collapse and be destroyed on the spot. Inside the shield, in the Taotai tribe's camp, thousands of Taotai tribe members looked up at the sky. Seeing the divine light barrier trembling violently, swaying and cracking, everyone's hearts tightened, and they were filled with worry and anxiety. Luckily, the Grand Elder, 2 elders, and more than 100 guards joined forces to support the defensive divine formation. Almost 2,000 Taotai tribe members spread out and formed a huge battle formation to increase the power of the divine formation. In this way, the 2 defensive divine formations did not collapse even though they seemed to be in danger. Even the cracks and gaps that often appeared on the protective barrier of the divine formation were quickly repaired by the Supreme Elder and the others. Looking at the current situation, if there were no accidents, the Taotai tribe could still hold on for 1 or 2 days. Until the Taotai tribe's power was exhausted, the defensive divine formation would be broken. Of course, by then, Xueshang and the 7 divine kings would be exhausted. Thinking of this, the Grand Elder and the experts of the Taotai tribe calmed down a little. However, Xueshang and the 7 divine kings were filled with anxiety and were somewhat irritated. They did not want to see such a situation. By then, even if they broke the defensive divine formation, their power would be exhausted. If they were to fight with thousands of Taotai tribe members, it was still unknown who would win. As powerful superiors, they would never allow such a situation to happen. They would not put themselves in danger and risk their lives to seek a chance of survival. They had to take the initiative and win easily and smoothly. Hence, Xueshang and the rest attacked for 2 hours. When they did not see any results, they changed their strategy. Through the attack and observation just now, I can confirm that the 2 divine formations guarding the Taotai tribe's campsite are Supreme King-level divine formations. However, this is not the formation left behind by the ancestors of the Taotai tribe. It was set up by Tao Yongsheng. Xueshang stopped attacking and said to the few divine kings, "I have known Tao Yongsheng for more than 10,000 years. I know him quite well. These 2 divine formations are not too strong. As long as everyone helps and covers, I am confident that I can break them within 4 hours." The God Kings all perked up when they heard him say that. They became eager. "Since clan leader Xueshang is confident, we will naturally help and cover for you." That's right. The divine formation at the entrance of the star-devouring grotto heaven is so complicated and powerful. Even clan leader Xueshang can break it. The 2 divine formations set up by Tao Yongsheng are nothing. Chapter 3696. Xueshang's suggestion was unanimously approved by the other supreme gods. The 2nd palace master of Gale Hall and the 2nd leader of 3 Kings Temple also flattered Xueshang. The 2 of them took the opportunity to express their opinions because they wanted to side with Xueshang. Although they might not really side with Xueshang, they still wanted to gain his favor. After all, they were both single commanders and did not have enough manpower. If Xueshang wanted to take advantage of them after this was over, they would be the ones being eaten. Everyone understood this, but no one said anything. Xueshang also pretended not to understand and continued, "Since no one has any objections, let's start." Then the 6 supreme gods continued to attack the defense divine array to cover for Xueshang. The right guardian of the Chongqi clan helped Xueshang and started to cast spells to break the divine array. Xueshang stared at the divine array barrier and formed a spell with both hands. He kept shooting out divine light into the array nodes of the barrier. It didn't take long for the defensive divine formation to react. Its power fluctuated, and its operating speed was affected. Seeing that Xueshang's actions were effective, the 6 supreme gods were overjoyed and attacked even more fiercely. After Xueshang confirmed that the method was effective, he also calmed down and started to break the array even more aggressively. Naturally, the Grand Elder and the 2 elders within the protective barrier of the divine formation could see everything clearly. Seeing that Xueshang had started to break the array and was affecting the divine array, the Taotai clan elites started to panic. The Grand Elder and more than 100 guards continued to cast spells to support the divine array and repair the cracks and gaps. The 2 elders and 2,000 clansmen joined forces to attack Xueshang, who was outside the array. They did not expect to hurt Xueshang. They only hoped to disturb and stop Xueshang from breaking the divine array. However, what happened next left everyone dumbfounded. Xueshang's body flashed with golden light as he took out a golden divine artifact. Swoosh! It was a Chongqi skeleton that was hundreds of feet tall and as large as a mountain. It looked like a lion with 4 hooves, a scorpion tail and wings. It was dark gold and looked very majestic. Those who knew the inside story immediately recognized this divine artifact. It was the Chongqi clan patriarch's indestructible golden body. Swoosh! The indestructible golden body, which was hundreds of meters tall, descended from the sky and quickly shrunk to a height of 10 meters, hovering above Xueshang's head. The indestructible golden body enveloped his body and released a sacred golden light to protect him. The attacks of the 2 elders of the Taotai clan and the 2,000 clansmen were blocked by the indestructible golden body before they could get close to Xueshang. Even if some of the more powerful spells hit the indestructible golden body's light shield, they would instantly collapse, unable to damage the golden light shield at all. Under the protection of the indestructible golden body, Xueshang could be said to be incomparably safe and in an invincible position. He completely ignored everyone's attacks and focused on casting spells to break the formation. Meanwhile, Ji Tianqing, God King Rahu, and Yank had already scoured an area of 40,000 kilometers north of the Taotai camp. In this area, the three of them successively excavated more than 80 mineral veins. Ji Tianqing also obtained more than 20 kinds of rare treasures. The last time he came to the star-devouring paradise, he had only taken a cursory look. He did not even have the chance to walk through the entire star-devouring paradise, so naturally, he did not have the chance to examine it carefully. Only now did he realize that the star-devouring paradise's wealth was far beyond his imagination. The abundance of resources here was beyond his expectations and made him particularly surprised. The three of them excavated and searched for treasures. Ji Tianqing could not help but exclaim, "I have long known that the star-devouring paradise's location is special and is blessed by the heavens. The mineral veins are abnormally rich in resources. I did not expect that the rumors were not accurate. The mineral veins here are actually so abundant. If we take away all the resources here, we can probably feed the entire Myriad Demon League." The Myriad Demon League was one of the top 3 super forces in the Star Source continent. There were countless experts and disciples in the league, with at least 20,000 members. One could imagine how abundant the mineral veins in the star-devouring paradise were. Unexpectedly, after hearing Ji Tianqing's words, God King Rahu hurriedly explained, "Young master, the mineral veins in the star-devouring paradise are indeed abundant and indeed unexpected. However, the resources here are too limited, and it is difficult to satisfy the daily needs of cultivation. Moreover, there are too many members in the Myriad Demon League, and countless resources are consumed every year. Even if these mineral veins are converted to the equivalent of cultivation needs, it is estimated that they will only last for 500 to 600 years. When I first established the Myriad Demon League, I thought about these problems. Therefore, the various branches of the Myriad Demon League will use various methods to obtain income. Not only can it satisfy the daily needs of the League members, but it can also maintain the operations of the Myriad Demon League, and it can also save a large amount of cultivation resources." Although he spoke tactfully, he revealed a piece of information through these words. The Myriad Demon League had its own system and could operate normally. It did not lack cultivation resources and even had a large surplus. Therefore, no matter what, he would not take Ji Tianqing's mineral veins to subsidize the Myriad Demon League. Ji Tianqing understood his meaning and said with a smile, "I can guess this. However, if you lack any refining materials or ores in the future, you can find me." God King Rahu hurriedly bowed and said with a smile, "Then I will thank young master on behalf of the League members. If young master needs anything, please do not hesitate to ask. The reason why the Myriad Demon League has developed so far is that it has more people and more money." "That is good." Ji Tianqing was very satisfied and nodded with a smile. Underground not far away, Yank was excavating and refining the mineral veins. He naturally heard the conversation between Ji Tianqing and God King Rahu clearly. He was extremely shocked, excited, and confused. "Oh my God! In the past, we only knew that young master was Kenshin and had supreme prestige in the god realm. I did not expect young master to be so powerful in the dragon realm. A peak god king who controls a superforce like the Myriad Demon League is actually so respectful to him and calls him young master? This is too unreal, isn't it?" The more Yank thought about it, the more shocked he felt. He was even more curious and in awe of Ji Tianqing's mysterious background. However, at this moment he did not show any abnormalities. He suppressed his excitement and confusion and pretended that he did not hear anything. Following that, the three people continued to search for mineral veins, resources, and rare treasures in the wasteland and mountains. In the past, before the Taotai clan met with a disaster, there would be guards patrolling the wasteland every day. But now, all of the Taotai clan's clansmen and guards were gathered in the camp, fighting against Xueshang and the rest with their lives. Ji Tianqing trio wandered the wasteland, excavating mineral veins wantonly and plundering rare treasures. They actually did not encounter a single person. Forget about encountering the Taotai clan. They did not even see a single ferocious beast or spirit beast. completely unhindered. Just like this, as time passed, more and more mineral veins and treasures entered Ji Tianqing's pockets. Ji Tianqing was filled with joy and thought silently that after plundering these mineral veins and resources, the materials to forge the burial of Heaven's sword would not be lacking much. Chapter 3697. Another 4 hours passed. To the mining trio, time passed very quickly. It was short and happy. Another 120 mineral veins and 30 sets of rare treasures were in Ji Tianqing's pocket. Of course he was happy. However, to Xueshang and the 7 divine kings, time passed extremely slowly. It was exhausting. Since Xueshang started to crack the divine formation, 4 hours had passed. Everyone was exhausted. More than half of their divine power had been used up. Their spirits were a little weak. Inside the defensive divine formation, the 2 elders, over 100 guards and 2,000 Taotai clansmen were in the same situation. They were even more exhausted. Only the Grand Elder, who had always been in closed-door cultivation and had a very deep foundation, could still maintain 70% of his strength. Even so, it was difficult for him to do it alone. The 2 defensive divine formations that Tao Yongsheng had set up were finally cracked by Xueshang personally. The first layer of Crimson Light Shield was already broken into pieces and its power was gone. At that moment, along with the cracking sound, a huge crack appeared on the second layer of Golden Light Shield. The crack extended and expanded in all directions. Very soon it became a huge gap. Under the surprised and gratified gazes of the few divine kings and the desperate gazes of thousands of Taotai clansmen, the Golden Light Shield gradually cracked and collapsed. Walala, shards of divine light that covered the sky and the sun poured down from the sky like broken bricks, scattering on the wasteland. From then on, there was no longer any barrier between the 8 divine kings and the Taotai clansmen. In the camp of the Taotai clan, over 2,000 clansmen who were not qualified to participate in the battle were crying and screaming in despair. At the edge of the camp, on the wasteland that was full of devastation, the 2,000 Taotai clansmen who participated in the battle had red eyes. They were furious and desperate. Although these people knew that the end of the Taotai clan had arrived. Very soon they would be killed and turned into ashes. However, the Taotai clan was an ancient ferocious beast. Even if they were sealed as one of the 7 noble clans of the demon clan after the ancient times, it was still hard to change the bloodthirst and ruthlessness in their bones. Even if they were about to be destroyed, no one would be cowardly and surrender. At that moment, the 2,000 Taotai clansmen who were in a hopeless situation were triggered with boundless fighting spirit and killing intent. Their wills were as strong as an impregnable fortress, and they held the determination to die. They shouted their slogans that shook the heavens and let out angry roars. This is the moment of life and death. Fighting for the survival of our race, what is there to fear in death? Even if I die here, I will drag them down with me. Our Taotai clan will never admit defeat. Countless experts and experts of the Taotai clan roared at the top of their lungs. The sound waves reverberated in the sky, shaking the wasteland. The heavens and earth were filled with surging murderous intent. The murderous intent turned into a blood-colored gale that whistled past. Many deacons and guards of the Taotai clan moved quickly, leading their clansmen to fight against the enemy. The Great Elder and the 2 elders had taken out their natal artifacts and were filled with murderous intent. The 3 of them had solemn expressions as they crazily accumulated divine power in their bodies, preparing for the final battle. At this moment the atmosphere was somber and oppressive to the extreme. In the sky not far away, Xueshang and the 7 divine kings took the opportunity to adjust their breathing for a while before they drew their weapons. Xueshang looked at the Taotai clan expressionlessly, and there was a flash of apology in the depths of his cold eyes. I'm sorry, the star-devouring grotto heaven is too tempting. I have to kill all of you to completely control this grotto heaven. Although we were once allies, don't blame me for being ruthless. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame your clan leader for being immersed in the glory of the past and being conceited, refusing to accept the cruel reality. Xueshang repeated these words in his heart, but he did not say them out loud. After all, it was impossible for him to let the Taotai clan off. If you cut the weeds without removing the roots, they would grow again. The Taotai clan was the same as the Chongqi clan. They were both primordial ferocious beasts and the 7 noble clans of the demon clan. If they let the thousands of Taotai clan off today, they might make a comeback after a few thousand years. By then the Taotai clan's anger would sweep across the world. Not only would the Chongqi clan suffer, but the entire Star Source continent would be in chaos. Therefore they had to kill them. The Gale Hall 3 Kings Temple and Shihi sect had the same thoughts as Shueshang. Their forces were weaker than the Chongqi clan. So how would they dare to leave behind any future troubles? In the next moment, Shueshang raised his butcher's knife and shouted expressionlessly, "Spread out, kill!" As his voice fell, he took the lead and charged into the Taotai clan's campsite. He waved his divine knife, creating afterimages that filled the sky as he released hundreds of laws and divine powers. The Right Guardian, Gale Hall Second Hall Master, and a few other supreme gods spread out and charged into the Taotai clan's campsite from all directions to start a massacre. This was naturally the most effective move. The 8 of them were all upper-level supreme gods, and their abilities were outstanding. If they were to gather and fight the thousands of Taotai clan members head-on, even if they could win, they would have to buy time and pay a heavy price. However, if they were to spread out and fight on their own, they would be very flexible. The thousands of Taotai clan members had to be divided into 8 groups to deal with them separately, so their strength was greatly reduced. As the crimson light and 5-colored divine light covered the sky, hundreds of divine skill light shadows poured into the Taotai clan's campsite like a flood. Blade light and sword shadows, ice, fire and frost, ancient ferocious beasts, blades that could split heaven and earth. All kinds of divine light shadows lit up the sky. Bam bam bam. Rumble. Rumble. Boom. Crack. Hence an earth-shattering, deafening sound burst out, reverberating through the universe and shaking heaven and earth. The Taotai clan's campsite within a radius of 10,000 miles was instantly destroyed into ruins. Hundreds of houses and palaces were torn apart under the bombardment of the divine skill, turning into ruins, leaving behind dilapidated fences and broken walls. Hundreds of Taotai clan members were torn apart under the divine light, splashing out countless pieces and spraying blood all over the sky. There were roars of despair, angry curses and painful howls. However, they were all drowned out by the deafening sound. The Right Guardian, Gale Hall Second Hall Master, 3 Kings Temple's second leader, Shihi sect's deputy sect leader, and the others were all invincible, massacring wantonly. Only Shueshang was stopped. He was the most powerful person, and the person who stopped him was naturally the most powerful person in the Taotai clan, the Grand Elder. In terms of age, seniority and strength, the Grand Elder was higher. If both sides were to fight one-on-one, the Grand Elder would definitely win. However, it was a pity that the Grand Elder did not have the divine weapon of the clan, and the primordial chaos bell fell into the hands of Ji Tianxing. However, Shueshang had the Chongqi old ancestors' indestructible golden body. When the indestructible golden body merged with his divine body, he had an indestructible body, and his defense was almost invincible. After exchanging a few blows with the Grand Elder, he stabilized his footing and gradually counterattacked, finally gaining the upper hand. On the other side, the remaining 2 elders of the Taotai clan were both intermediate god kings. Even if they were incomparably indignant and determined to die, it was useless. The Right Guardian of the Chongqi clan executed the technique of a 9th Heaven Realm god king, and easily killed them. The outcome of this battle was destined from the beginning. This was a massacre. Chapter 3698. Since it was a massacre, the battle could not be considered a stalemate. The outcome could only be described as tragic. In less than an hour, the Taotai clan's campsite within a radius of 10,000 miles was blasted into ruins, and the ground was filled with deep pits and ravines. The palaces and buildings had turned into ashes, and the thousands of Taotai clan people had also turned into ashes. There were very few survivors. Those clansmen of the Taotai clan that didn't have the strength to resist yet were unwilling to die carried hearts filled with terror and despair as they fled in all directions, and they were extremely terrified. It was a pity that Shueshang and the rest had come with the intention of killing them all. They had already set up a divine formation around the campsite, covering a radius of 30,000 miles. Although it was just a simple formation, the upper divine kings could break it with some effort. It was more than enough to trap the ordinary Taotai clan people. In a short while, the second palace master of Jifeng, deputy sect master of Shihe, and the rest had killed all the remaining Taotai clan people. Only the battlefield above the ruins still had 3 figures fighting fiercely. On one side was the Supreme Elder, who was also the last remaining life of the Taotai clan. On the other side was the sinister and ruthless Xueshang and his assistant, the Right Protector. The other 6 divine kings were busy killing the remaining Taotai clan people, but the Right Guardian was not interested. He loyally assisted Xueshang to kill the Supreme Elder as soon as possible. The battle had already come to an end. The Supreme Elder's body was badly mutilated, and he had lost an arm or a leg. He was extremely miserable. No matter how strong his divine power and foundation was, he was now like a candle in the wind, about to be extinguished. The second palace master of Jifeng and the second leader of 3 Kings Temple also shouted and joined the battle, joining forces to besiege the Supreme Elder. The old man who was covered in bloodstains finally died on the spot with his body crushed to pieces. His body turned into a bloody mist, sprinkling in the ruins, and raising a monstrous smell of blood. The godhead was also blasted into pieces, scattering in the ruins and ravines. The tragic battle ended. Xueshang also suffered some minor injuries, but it was nothing serious. It was just that his divine power was greatly depleted, and he was rather tired. After he stopped, he took out a divine elixir and consumed it to recover his divine power. As a big shot, he naturally disdained to do such trivial things as cleaning up the battlefield and searching for the remaining Taotai clan people. Of course, this was done by Vice Sect Master Shihe and the profound Yang Palace's great protector. The reason why these people disregarded their identities and became coolies to clean up the battlefield was because they had selfish motives. After all, after the Taotai clan's camp was destroyed, many big and small treasure vaults were revealed. They were all hidden deep underground. That was the personal treasury of the Taotai clan's deacons and elders, which stored a huge amount of resources and treasures. In addition, the corpses, relics, and space rings on the battlefield were also a considerable amount of wealth. Since the Taotai clan had already been annihilated, they naturally began to plunder the wealth. The Right Protector did not stay by Xueshang's side, but she did not clean up the battlefield and search for the treasuries and spatial rings. He just rummaged through the ruins for a while and found 16 godhead fragments. After piecing them together, he sent them to Xueshang. This was the Grand Elder's godhead fragment. Xueshang nodded with satisfaction and put the quintessence fragments into his bag. Although he didn't have Ji Tianqing's devouring divine ability, he couldn't absorb the Grand Supreme Elder's power. However, he was proficient in the soul-searching technique, and would definitely be able to find a lot of useful information from the Grand Supreme Elder's Godhead fragment. This would be of great help to him when he controlled the star-devouring Grotto Heaven in the future. Everyone was a higher god king, so of course they did things cleanly. In just an hour, the Taotai clan's camp, which was now a battlefield in ruins, was cleaned up by the few god kings. Not to mention the treasure vaults that were half hidden in the pits and ravines. Even the space rings that were scattered in the sand had been completely looted by them. The few god kings were very satisfied, and their hearts were filled with anticipation and enthusiasm. As a result, they forgot about some of their injuries and didn't feel tired. Clan leader Xueshang, the battlefield is cleaned up. We should go and excavate the mineral veins. Although this was nonsense, the second palace master of Gale still took the initiative to say it, intending to ask for Xueshang's instructions. Everyone knew that the obstacles had been cleared, and now it was time to split the spoils. And at this juncture, it was very likely to be the beginning of internal strife. The 5 forces each had their own ulterior motives, and no one could trust anyone. Gale Hall and 3 Kings Temple only had one god king here, so they were naturally the weakest. Of course they were more careful, not to curry favor with Xueshang, but at least they could ascertain his attitude. Fortunately, Xueshang did not show any signs of flaring up, as if he had no thoughts of internal strife or eliminating dissidents at all. He stood up, nodded and said, "Everyone has worked hard. The fighting just now was all for the sake of the harvest now." North of these ruins is the core hinterland of the star-devouring Grotto Heaven. 80% of the mineral veins are gathered here. In a while, Everyone will split up and excavate the mineral veins on your own. How much you can plunder will all depend on your ability." Finished speaking, Xueshang even revealed a trace of a gentle smile. Even though the god kings of the four forces did not quite believe that Xueshang was so kind. But when Xueshang said so, everyone showed expressions of relief, and they all saluted and praised. It was nothing more than praising Xueshang for being a man of his word, and being a person of virtue and prestige. But in the hearts of the few god kings, they became even more vigilant, because Xueshang wanted everyone to split up and excavate on their own. Everyone could not help but have the same thought in their minds. Could it be that Xueshang wants us to split up and then kill us one by one, so that he can devour the star-devouring grotto heaven alone? It must be so. There's no way someone as vicious as him would allow us to plunder his resources. Thinking so, the few god kings secretly communicated with their eyes and quickly understood each other's meaning. Later, when plundering the resources, they would definitely unite and monitor Xueshang. They would rather dig less mineral veins than fall into Xueshang's trap. Swoosh! Xueshang did not waste any time. He got up and stepped into the sky, flying north. The right protector was silent and followed closely behind him. He secretly asked through voice transmission, "Patriarch, are we really going to give up all those resources?" Xueshang did not turn his head. He maintained his flying posture and replied through voice transmission, "Of course not. How can I give up the fat meat that is in my hands? It's just that compared to the starry cliff in the depths of the star-devouring grotto heaven, the mineral veins and resources underground are nothing." Starry cliff? The right protector was a little puzzled and revealed a puzzled expression. Xueshang patiently explained, "The divine array that protects the star-devouring grotto heaven, as well as the many mechanisms and arrays in the grotto heaven, are all related to the starry cliff. The lone peak at the edge of the grotto heaven is the center of the array of the star-devouring grotto heaven. If you want to control the star-devouring grotto heaven, you must first control the starry cliff. Later, you will follow me to the starry cliff. When we join forces to take down the starry cliff, we will deal with those guys." The right protector suddenly understood and hurriedly replied through voice transmission, "This subordinate obeys." Chapter 3699. Xueshang and the right guardian flew in front, crossing 1,000 miles with each step. The 6 god kings of the 4 forces followed behind, maintaining a distance from each other, but not too far apart. This distance was very subtle. It did not appear to be close, but it also ensured that they could take care of each other in the event of an emergency. Not long after, everyone flew 20,000 miles. According to common sense, there should be a large amount of mineral resources hidden underground and in the barren mountains from here onwards. However, Xueshang, who was flying in front, suddenly had a drastic change in expression, and stopped in the sky. How could this be? Xueshang looked down at the ground and the surrounding barren mountains, frowning. His face was as cold as ice, and his eyes flashed with frightening coldness. The right guardian, who had always been expressionless, could not help but reveal a stunned expression. He was angry and puzzled. The 6 god kings of the 4 forces realized that the situation was not right, and hurriedly followed. When they saw the situation in the barren plains and barren mountains below, their expressions changed drastically, and they cried out in alarm. "Damn it! How could it be like this? There should be many mineral veins here, but they have all been excavated? It must be the people of the Taotai clan who dug those mineral veins in advance." Without a doubt, the ground and barren mountains below everyone's feet were filled with gullies, huge cracks and holes. The mineral veins that should have been hidden underground had all disappeared without a trace. It could not be helped, this was all done by God King Luo. His methods were simple and crude, and the traces he left behind were also very crude, causing the ground to be in a state of devastation. However, he was not as meticulous as Ji Tianxing. Although he would also leave behind holes and cracks, at least they were much lighter. However, the person who did the most meticulous work was the rock giant Yank. In Ji Tianxing's words, this guy was like the son of the earth, and the underground was almost his home. The places where he had dug the mineral veins did not have any abnormalities on the surface, but there were huge holes hidden underground. It was unknown what method he used to prevent the ground from shattering and collapsing those holes that stretched for hundreds of miles. The 8 god kings stood in the sky, and their faces were very gloomy, and their eyes were filled with anger. The atmosphere was rather gloomy. After a while, Xueshang said expressionlessly, "It was most likely done by the Taotai clan, but they would not destroy their own foundation, and it is even more impossible for them to dig it all out. Don't worry, let's continue heading north." Thus, the 8 deity kings went on their way again, exploring the depths of the grotto heaven. As the group ventured deeper, they discovered huge pits and ravines on the ground and barren mountains every few thousand miles. Some of the pits and ravines were very ugly, and some looked very light, but the underground veins were indeed gone. The strangest thing was that there were many places that looked normal. However, when everyone used their divine senses to scan the area, they discovered that there was a huge hole in the ground. What infuriated them even more was that when they released their divine senses to cover a radius of 70,000 to 80,000 miles, the scene they saw was still the same. Within a radius of 80,000 miles, there were over 100 pits, abysses, and ravines. Countless lands were shattered and mountains collapsed. Every collapse and hole meant that a mine had been excavated. Xueshang's eyes suddenly turned dark red, as if they were filled with blood. His entire body ignited with blood-red flames. The other god kings weren't any better. All of them had savage expressions and were unable to restrain their rage, and they surged with killing intent. "Bastard! Who did this?" Xueshang's eyes widened in anger as he cursed loudly. The other god kings were also filled with anger as they looked at the open field and cursed. "Goddamn thief! He actually made us draw water with a bamboo basket. We worked hard for several days, but we didn't expect that someone would intercept us. Just as we were about to succeed, the fruit was picked by someone. What the hell is this? *CK him. Don't let me find out who did it, or I'll definitely turn him into ashes." Although they didn't know who the opponent was, it didn't stop the god kings from cursing the heavens and the earth to vent their anger. After a long time, when everyone's emotions stabilized, they quieted down. Xueshang rubbed his eyebrows and said thoughtfully, "Along the way, just from what we can detect, there are over 160 mines that have been excavated. There must be many more mineral veins in this vast wasteland, and they must have already been excavated. There are over 200 mines, 80% of the resources in the star-devouring grotto heaven. Who did this?" No matter how astute Xueshang was, he felt a headache at this moment as he couldn't figure out the reason. The profound Yang Palace's great guardian said angrily, "The entrance to the star-devouring grotto heaven has always been strictly guarded. Even we can't break in. Other than the Taotai clan, who else would do such a thing?" The second leader of the 3 Kings Temple nodded in agreement and said, "Excavating over 200 mines, what a huge movement this is. If the Taotai clan didn't do it, I'm afraid they would have already fought and suffered heavy casualties." Although the other god kings didn't express their opinions, they also agreed with this statement. After all, this explanation was more reasonable, but Xueshang still couldn't figure it out. He frowned and asked, "Logically speaking, this explanation is the most reasonable, but I still think that it's not necessary at all. The Taotai clan planned to seal the star-devouring grotto heaven and recuperate for 10,000 years. There's no reason for them to excavate all the mines. What's more, after they excavated the mines, where did they hide them? That's over 200 hills worth tens of trillions of resources. Indeed, over 200 hill-like mines, even if they were purified into pure divine stones, could also pile up into a towering mountain range. But everyone had already turned the Taotai clan's camp upside down, and still couldn't find where the massive amount of divine stones were hidden. Thinking of this, the second palace master of Gale suddenly thought of something and said subconsciously, "Could it be that the Taotai clan's powerhouses put all those mines into their spatial rings?" Suddenly hearing this sentence, the other god kings were all shocked, and their gazes gathered on Xueshang. Because after the Grand Elder was killed, the spatial ring and divine spark fragments were all taken by Xueshang. Xueshang didn't take any of the other people's rings or the underground treasure vault, only the Grand Elder's relics. If the shocking wealth of tens of trillions was really put into the spatial ring, then it must be in Xueshang's hands. Xueshang was also stunned for a moment. He instantly narrowed his eyes, and a terrifying murderous intent burst out from his body. Realizing that he had stood out, the second palace master of Gale immediately shrunk his neck, and an apologetic look flashed across his eyes. The other 5 god kings all subconsciously accumulated divine power to prevent Xueshang from suddenly attacking and killing people on the spot. However, Xueshang quickly restrained his murderous intent and took out a simple black thumb ring. He waved it at everyone and said with a magnanimous expression, "It's not with me." That black thumb ring was the Grand Elder's spatial ring. After the Grand Elder passed away, the black thumb ring became an ownerless item. Xueshang opened the restriction again, allowing everyone's divine consciousness to pry into the storage space in the ring. Although the ring contained a massive amount of cultivation resources and countless rare treasures. Chapter 3700. Xueshang's actions were open and honest. When the few god kings got the answer, they all showed an ashamed expression and cupped their hands towards him. Although it was an apology, it was impossible to get a response from Xueshang, not to mention an understanding. Both parties had their own ulterior motives. It was just that they had not seen the mine and it was not the time to split the loot, so they did not fall out with each other. Just as everyone was silent and the atmosphere was awkward, the Right Guardian flew back from afar. Just now, he took the initiative to land on the wasteland and carefully checked the 2 pits and gullies. He returned to Xueshang and cupped his hands and said softly, "Clan leader, there's a new discovery." Not only was Xueshang shocked, the other god kings' eyes also lit up as they stared at the Right Guardian. Under Xueshang's signal, the Right Guardian did not use the voice transmission method and directly said it. "I have carefully observed those pits and gullies. They should be traces of excavation today, and there are still some residual divine aura. Although the divine aura is faint, I can tell that it was done by a middle god king." The Right Guardian was a 9th stage god king and had mastered many secret skills. Naturally, his methods were extraordinary. It was just that the news he spoke of caused Xueshang and the few god kings to be stunned. Excavated today? A middle god king did it? How is this possible? The protector of the right pondered for a moment and continued, "I would like to make a bold guess. The surrounding mine should have appeared no more than 10 hours ago." What? Xueshang was even more confused. The other god kings also showed an expression of disbelief and exclaimed, 10 hours? At that time we had just rushed into star-devouring grotto heaven, and were fighting with the Taotai clan. If what the Right Guardian said is true, then someone took advantage of the battle between us and the Taotai clan and dug the mine away in advance. The person who dug the mine must be from the Taotai clan. If it was someone from another clan, it would be impossible to sneak in without being detected by the Taotai clan. I am sure that the despicable bastard who took the opportunity to dig the mine has not left star-devouring grotto heaven yet. He must be hiding somewhere. The last words of the Three Kings Temple's second leader reminded Xueshang and the other god kings. Xueshang subconsciously turned his head and looked towards the north. There, at the edge of the star-devouring paradise, was a lonely starry cliff, which was the closest to the starry sky. A murderous aura flashed through Xueshang's eyes, but he quickly hid it. He said expressionlessly, "Everyone, the truth is about to be revealed. Let's not waste any more time. Let's split up and search for the miner." With that, he looked at the god kings coldly, waiting for them to split up. However, the divine kings were no fools. They dilly-dallied, unwilling to separate. They even wanted to move together. Xueshang immediately became furious. His complexion became gloomy as he shouted angrily, "That bastard is merely a medium divine king. What are you afraid of? I promise that whoever catches that thief will get an extra 500 billion in resources." Although the few god kings were silently cursing in their hearts, what they were afraid of was not the mine thieves, but him, clan head Xueshang. However, Xueshang had thrown out 500 billion resources as a reward, so everyone could only split up and search north. Seeing that everyone had left, Xueshang took the Right Guardian and headed north expressionlessly. Meanwhile, in the deepest part of the star-devouring grotto heaven, on the lonely starry cliff, Jitianqing Divine King Luoho and Yang stood at the peak of the palace at the top of the cliff, looking at the brilliant starry sky close at hand. The starry cliff beneath their feet was not as intact as it was in the past. The entire cliff was on the verge of collapse. There were dozens of cracks of various sizes, and hundreds of holes the size of houses. Looking at those marks, one could tell that this was the work of the three of them. Moreover, they had already dug out all the precious resources inside the starry cliff. 80% of the resources in the star-devouring grotto heaven had already entered Ji Tianqing's pockets. Not to mention the 260 ore veins, just the top ores and materials dug out from the starry cliff were already a shocking amount of wealth. Although he had not counted them, Ji Tianqing had a rough estimate. The value of these resources, if not 100 trillion, was at least 80 trillion. Whether it was in his previous life or this life, this was the first time he had such a huge amount of wealth. Even if he used this wealth to create 2 myriad demon alliances, it would be enough to last for more than 1,000 years. Of course, if he wanted to last for thousands of years, he would have to rely on his own blood and profit. When I came to the starry cliff before, I was only thinking about Tao Yongxing's ambush and did not observe carefully. I did not expect the top materials and ores of the star-devouring grotto heaven to be hidden in this lonely peak. Ji Tianqing looked down at the starry sky and said with a smile. This trip was smooth and perfect, so he was naturally in a good mood. Divine King Luoho also smiled and nodded. Xueshang and the others fought with the Taotai clan to the death, but young master was the one who benefited the most. This trip can be called perfect. Although the star-devouring grotto heaven's location is special, new ore veins are constantly being produced. However, young master has dug out all the ore veins. Even if Xueshang controls the star-devouring grotto heaven, he will have to wait 2,000 to 3,000 years to recover 20 to 30%. Ji Tianqing smiled and said, Tao Yongxing was too pedantic and stubborn in the end. He ruined the Taotai clan's bloodline. In comparison, that Xueshang is more patient, vicious, and ruthless. Divine King Luoho raised his eyebrows and asked in a low voice, if that is the case, then this old servant will find an opportunity to finish him off to prevent future trouble. Forget it. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, he is quite tactful, and for some reason, he does not dare to do anything to me. There is no need to add more karma. Divine King Luoho nodded to show that he understood and reminded, young master, although you and I restrained our auras when we were mining just now and did not have to worry about exposing our whereabouts. However, this Yank, I'm afraid he left his aura and traces. Do you want this old servant to deal with it? Hearing his name, Yank was a little nervous and ashamed. Ji Tianqing waved his hand again and said, he is only a mid-level divine king after all. There is no need to be harsh. As for the remnant divine power aura, there is no need to pay attention to it. Yank has not shown himself in front of Xueshang. He will not guess that it is me. Besides, 10 hours have passed. Xueshang has most likely succeeded and is about to start mining. Hearing this, Yank could not help but laugh and say those fellows were mining happily, only to find a desolate and empty mine. I wonder how wonderful their expressions will be? Ji Tianqing was about to laugh and tease him when his consciousness suddenly sensed that someone was rapidly approaching. He immediately stopped smiling. Divine King Luoho also sensed that someone was approaching and said expressionlessly, they have already discovered the abnormality. We should go. Amen. Ji Tianqing nodded in response. Then he put Yank back into the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes pagoda, and concealed his aura with Divine King Luoho before flying south. The two of them were cautious and circled 20,000 kilometers to avoid the 2 divine kings who were hurrying over. However, for some reason, the leader still sensed the abnormality and immediately locked onto Ji Tianqing and Divine King Luoho's position with his consciousness. In the next instant, he teleported and charged over. Chapter 3701. Without a doubt, the 2 experts who had rushed over were Xueshang and the Right Protector. Both of them were 9th-level Divine King experts, and had mastered many divine powers and secret techniques. Naturally, they could not be underestimated. Ji Tianqing and Luoho's method of concealing their presence and aura was brilliant. No matter how powerful the Right Protector was, he could not detect their presence. However, Xueshang had already used Patriarch Chongqi's indestructible golden body, and was still fused with him. This would drain his divine power constantly and would not be suitable for long-term fusion. However, in the star-devouring grotto heaven, how could he let his guard down when killing and plundering? The reason why he was able to sense the auras of Ji Tianqing and Luoho God King wasn't because he was strong. It was because Patriarch Chongqi's indestructible golden body was a top divine artifact that was not inferior to the primordial chaos bell. Detecting Ji Tianqing and Luoho's aura was only one of its effects. Swoosh! Starry Cliff was just ahead, but Xueshang suddenly changed directions. The right protector naturally understood that something was amiss and hurriedly followed. In the blink of an eye, Xueshang had rushed to Ji Tianqing and Luoho's vicinity. He was less than 100,000 feet away. Although the night sky looked dark with specks of starlight, there was nothing. However, Xueshang still swung his saber decisively and used a divine power that could split heaven and earth. He slashed at the invisible Ji Tianqing and Luoho. Swoosh! Swoosh! 6 blood-red saber lights that were 10,000 feet long blocked the duo's path of retreat and slashed down violently. The saber lights contained hundreds of laws and divine powers. Not only did they seal the space within 10,000 miles, but they also contained the 5 elements, wind, lightning, and other divine powers. Ji Tianqing and Luoho were in danger, but they did not panic. They continued to remain invisible and counterattacked. Originally, Ji Tianqing had planned to retreat and not be entangled with Xueshang and company. After all, he had already obtained what he wanted. There was no need to expose himself. However, not only did Xueshang discover them, but he also attacked with all his might, vowing to delay them. This made it impossible for Ji Tianqing and Luoho to escape. They could only defend themselves. Swoosh! Swish! Ji Tianqing unleashed several resplendent sword lights with his palm, while God King Rahu unleashed several fist lights. In order to hide their identities, the two of them did not use their full strength, nor did they use their signature divine powers. However, the two of them had extraordinary strength. In an instant, they destroyed the 6 bloody lights and broke through Xueshang's seal. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the two of them hurriedly sped away. However, the protector of the right rushed over as fast as he could and cast a spell to intercept him. Damned thief, trying to escape after snatching food from the tiger's mouth? As he spoke, the right protector also waved his saber and slashed out saber lights that filled the sky. He also waved his palm and unleashed boundless blood flames. The space within a radius of 10,000 miles was sealed once again, as firm and unbreakable as ice. Ji Tianqing and God King Rahu had no choice but to launch another counterattack. Only a series of muffled bangs could be heard as the secret techniques of the two sides collided high in the sky, bursting out destructive shock waves that spread out in all directions. The right protector's attack was shattered, and he was sent flying back with minor injuries. However, Xueshang charged over again. Relying on the invincible defense of his indestructible golden body, he fearlessly intercepted Ji Tianqing and God King Rahu. Just like that, Ji Tianqing and God King Rahu defended against Xueshang and the right protector's attacks as they fled into the distance. If it were any other day, Xueshang and the right protector would definitely not be their match in an open battle. However, the current situation was special. The two of them had to conceal their figures and auras, and they could not use their signature divine powers. Naturally, their combat strength was reduced. Under such circumstances, the battle actually ended in a tie. It was difficult to tell who would win. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing and God King Rahu retreated as they fought, gradually leaving the starry cliff. However, something that made them even more infuriated happened. The commotion caused by the Four's battle could be clearly seen from tens of thousands of miles away. Gale's second palace master, Three Kings Temple's second leader, Shihi vice sect master, and the others were searching everywhere for traces of the thief. Suddenly, they saw the commotion of a great battle in the depths of the grotto heaven. Their faces lit up with joy, and they hurried over to help as quickly as possible. There are people fighting over there. It must be clan leader Xueshang who discovered the thief. That thief actually dared to steal our mineral resources. He's courting death. Everyone hurry over and help. No matter what, we can't let that thief escape. He has hundreds of trillions of resources on him. The 6 God King experts transmitted their voices to each other, and rushed over with murderous intent. In a short span of 20 breaths, the 6 of them arrived at the battlefield one after another, and joined up with Xueshang and the Right Protector. The scene was a little strange. They could not see any traces of the enemy at all. Xueshang and the Right Protector seemed to be fighting with the air. However, the God Kings were all experts. They naturally understood that the opponent was invisible. When they calmed down and used their divine powers to sense, they discovered that there was more than one invisible opponent. Immediately, the 6 God Kings were a little stunned. They waved their divine weapons and joined the battle while asking about the situation. Wasn't it said that the thief who stole the mineral vein was a middle-level God King? Why is it a high-level God King? And there are 2 of them? Clan leader Xueshang, are you sure that these 2 fellows are the thieves who stole the mineral vein? Whether these 2 are thieves who stole the mineral vein or the remnants of the Taotai clan, they have to die today. Right. Clan leader Xueshang is right. These 2 fellows hiding in the star-devouring grotto heaven must be strange. We can't leave them alive. Today's matter can't be leaked out. Therefore, we have to silence them no matter what. While the God Kings were fighting, they discussed loudly for a while before coming to a consensus. Following that, the 8 God Kings spread out and besieged Ji Tianqing and God King Luoho with all their strength. Originally, Ji Tianqing and God King Luoho maintained their concealment and did not use their trump cards. They could still deal with Xueshang and the Right Protector. At this time, facing the besiegement of the 8 God Kings, the 2 fell into a disadvantage and were surrounded by danger. If they continued to hide their identities, they would have to pay a heavy price. Even if they did not die, they would be seriously injured. In desperation, Ji Tianqing and God King Luoho could only use their trump cards. Absolute shadows of 10 directions. Ji Tianqing roared angrily and his body flashed with golden light. Instantly, 6 doppelgangers appeared. He maintained his concealment while the 6 doppelgangers appeared in the sky and attacked the 8 God Kings valiantly. The 2 sides temporarily separated and faced each other while maintaining a distance. Seeing the 6 Ji Tianqing appear, the God Kings were filled with fear and were secretly on guard. Xueshang and the Right Protector saw this familiar scene and looked at the doppelgangers. Suddenly, their faces changed and their eyes were filled with shock. "It's you. You are here." The 2 of them exclaimed at the same time. Their faces were extremely ugly, and they subconsciously retreated 1,000 feet. Chapter 3702. During the battle at Surging Sun Lake, Ji Tianqing fought Tao Yongsheng, the High Priest, Xueshang and the Right Guardian alone. The 3 elders of the Taotai clan and the elites of the Blood Massacre Hall of the Chongqi clan could be ignored. In that battle, Ji Tianqing had also used the 10 directional shadows. Moreover, Tao Yongsheng had died in that battle, and Xueshang and the Right Guardian had been poisoned and heavily injured. Therefore, the 2 of them had a deep memory. When they saw the 6 clones, they recognized that it was Long Tian. The other 6 God Kings had just calmed down when they saw that the 6 white-robed youths were all clones. Just as they were thinking about how to deal with it, they saw Xueshang and the Right Guardian turn pale with fright. The 6 God Kings were also shocked. They hurriedly retreated 1,000 feet and asked in confusion, "Patriarch Xueshang, what's going on? Do you know the owner of these 6 clones?" Hearing the God King's questions, Xueshang's expression turned ugly. He shouted in a deep voice, "He's Long Tian." The Right Guardian, who had always been silent, also added an explanation. Tao Yongsheng, the Taotai clan's patriarch, was killed by him. Hearing that, the 6 God Kings were stunned for a moment. Then their expressions changed drastically. All of them were shocked and aghast. "What? He's Long Tian? The Dragon Clan youth that the Myriad Demon Alliance issued a bounty for? He's the one who killed Tao Yongsheng and heavily injured Patriarch Xueshang and the Right Guardian? Wasn't he hunted down by various experts and disappeared long ago? Not only do the experts of the various regions in the northwest want to kill him, but the Myriad Demon Alliance also ordered his death. Even the Xuanji Grotto Heaven issued a bounty and sent countless experts to kill him. Such a cruel and ruthless person, causing the experts of the entire Star Source continent to hunt him down. They searched the entire world but failed to find him. I didn't expect him to be hiding in the star-devouring Grotto Heaven. Clearly, the God Kings knew Long Tian's identity and his terrifying strength and battle record. Everyone was anxious and terrified. For a moment, they did not dare to attack again. Since Ji Tianqing's identity had been exposed, he no longer concealed himself and openly revealed his true body. Shua! With a flash of white light, he appeared in the sky with his left hand behind his back and his right hand holding the sword of burial of heaven. He looked at Xueshang and the others expressionlessly. When Xueshang and the right guardian saw him, their pupils contracted, and the 6 divine kings were filled with wariness, and their nerves were taut. Ji Tianqing ignored the 6 god kings. His gaze landed on Xueshang, and he said with a cold smile, "What? Have you forgotten your lesson and your oath to the heavenly Tao?" Xueshang pursed his lips and did not dare to answer. He quickly retreated with the right protector. Not only was he afraid of Ji Tianqing's strength and methods, but he also didn't dare to violate the heavenly oath. The 6 god kings were confused. They looked at Xueshang in confusion and thought to themselves, "What heavenly oath? Why is Xueshang so scared?" Seeing Xueshang and the right enforcer show weakness, Ji Tianqing shifted his gaze and looked at the 6 divine kings. Immediately, a formless pressure enveloped the 6 god kings, causing them to feel even more pressured and uneasy. Ji Tianqing sneered again, "You want to stop me with just the few of you? Get lost if you don't want to die." Such arrogant and conceited words filled the 6 god kings with humiliation and rage. However, due to Long Tian's terrifying strength and battle record, they subconsciously lowered their heads and retreated. Ji Tianqing smiled disdainfully as he stepped into the sky and was about to leave. Xueshang was unwilling and hurriedly said, "Long Tian, I admit that I'm not your match and my Cheongqi clan won't deal with you anymore. However, you're risking your life alone while we have the numbers. You're so arrogant, do you really think that those 6 experts can't stop you?" Hearing these words, the 6 god kings felt much more relaxed and recovered most of their confidence. However, thinking about it carefully, their emotions were complicated and filled with anger. What does Xueshang mean? He and the right protector don't dare to deal with Long Tian? They mentioned the heavenly oath just now. It's most likely related to this. Damn it! Xueshang and the right protector aren't doing anything, but they want the 6 of us to deal with Long Tian? Isn't this sending us to our deaths? The 6 god kings looked at each other and discussed secretly through voice transmissions. Seeing that they were hesitating, Xueshang continued, "Long Tian, we spent so much effort to eradicate the Taotai clan. However, you reaped without sowing and snatched away the mineral resources that originally belonged to us. That's a treasure worth hundreds of trillions. You want to leave just like that? That depends on whether everyone agrees or not." He could not attack Ji Tianqing due to the heavenly oath, but he was good at instigating and using the 6 god kings. As expected, the 6 hesitating god kings were provoked by the mineral resources worth hundreds of trillions. They were instantly enraged and filled with killing intent. Their originally retreating footsteps stopped. Their hesitant eyes also became firm and ruthless. The 6 god kings held divine weapons and blocked Ji Tianqing's path. "Long Tian, we have no enmity with you, and we respect your reputation and battle record. However, you've gone too far. Not only did you reap the benefits, you didn't even leave us a mouthful of soup. Simply despicable. Long Tian, we paid such a huge price. It's impossible for us to return empty-handed. If you want to leave safely, hand over the mineral resources obediently. We can treat it as if nothing happened. Although you're very strong and your methods are impressive, you're only 1-2 people after all. Not only do we have 8 experts, there are also hundreds of experts outside the Grotto Heaven. You should consider it yourself." Although the 6 god kings were filled with killing intent and had ruthless expressions, however, anyone could tell that they were somewhat fierce in appearance but weak in heart. They did not want to return empty-handed, but they also did not dare to fight to the death with Ji Tianqing. They only hoped that Ji Tianqing would be sensible and hand over the mineral resources obediently. Taking a step back, even if he did not hand over all of it, he could hand over half of it. However, they did not expect that Ji Tianqing had never been a sensible person. At this moment, it was even more impossible for him to take half a step back. Ha ha ha. As the saying goes, people die for wealth, birds die for food. This saying is indeed true. Since you're tired of living, then I'll send you on your way. As soon as he finished speaking, a cold light flashed in Ji Tianqing's eyes. His killing intent suddenly exploded. In the next moment he turned into a phantom and charged toward Shi and the vice sect leader. His 6 doppelgangers also used all their strength to wield the sword of burial of heaven and attack the god kings. Even the invisible god king Luoho used his ultimate killer move to attack Xueshang and the right guardian who were the furthest away. This was because Luoho god king had already made a decision to persuade Ji Tianqing through voice transmission. Young master, your whereabouts cannot be revealed. It looks like we can only silence them. Ji Tianqing also agreed. Moreover, these god kings deserve to die. Naturally, he would not go easy on them. In an instant, the sky was covered with colorful divine light, sword shadows, flames, and lightning. It sealed off the entire area. The 8 god kings, including Xueshang and the right guardian, were all enveloped by the divine power and were about to be drowned by the divine light. At this critical juncture, the 6 god kings fought back with all their might. As for Xueshang and the right guardian, they turned around and ran for their lives. Chapter 3703. Rumble. Bam 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 bam. Kaboom. Once the battle started, divine light covered thousands of miles. Deafening collisions and explosions reverberated between heaven and earth. The destructive shockwaves spread out in all directions like multicolored ripples. Although there were only 2 people on Ji Tianqing's side. But with his 6 doppelgangers it was equivalent to 8 high-level god kings. Moreover, he and Luoho Supreme God King could easily crush Xueshang the right guardian and the others. Naturally, after a fierce battle, the 6 god kings including the second temple master of Gale, Shi He, and deputy sect leader were all heavily injured and retreated. Xueshang and the right guardian, who were the first to escape, were heavily targeted by Luoho Supreme God King and were naturally injured. However, the one who was heavily injured was the right guardian. Xueshang had the indestructible golden body and was unharmed. Even if Luoho Supreme God King chased after him and Xueshang resisted with all his strength, he was still able to escape and gradually retreated. Luoho Supreme God King saw that he was protected by a top divine artifact and knew that his defense was impenetrable. He could not kill him today. After all, he was only an avatar and his true body was still in outer space. Although he was full of regret, there was nothing he could do. He could only watch as Xueshang escaped further and further until he disappeared into the horizon. In his anger, Luoho Supreme God King chased after the right guardian with all his might and beat him up badly. After a short 30 breaths, the battle came to an end. Luoho Supreme God King was ruthless and killed the right guardian on the spot. He cut his divine body into several pieces and destroyed his divine spark. After dealing with the right guardian, he turned to help Ji Tianqing. Unexpectedly, Ji Tianqing and his 6 doppelgangers had already killed 4 god kings. Only the second temple master of Gale and deputy sect leader of Gale were left. They were still stubbornly resisting, but they were also spent and were not a threat. After Luoho Supreme God King joined the battle, he killed the heavily injured deputy sect leader of Gale Shi He in 2 moves. Ji Tianqing and his 6 doppelgangers also cut the second temple master of Gale into pieces. The battle came to an end. The deafening sound reverberated in the sky, and the divine light and dust that blotted out the sky were slowly dissipating. Luoho God King revealed his true form and cupped his fists towards Ji Tianqing. He said apologetically, "This old servant is incompetent. I was unable to stop Xueshang and allowed him to escape. Young master, please punish me." Although Ji Tianqing felt a little regretful, he could only wave his hand and persuade, "It's not your fault. After all, he has Patriarch Qi's indestructible golden body, and his defense is almost invincible." Even during the battle at Guxingyang Lake, I could only think of ways to poison him and injure him. It was impossible for me to kill him. What's more, when he saw me in my true form, he lost all will to fight and ran for his life. If you want to keep him here, you'll have to set up a divine formation in advance or use a top-grade king-grade divine artifact. Godly King Rahu was taken aback as he asked doubtfully, "Young master, isn't the Taotai clan's primal chaos bell in your hands? Ji Tianqing said with some regret. It's true that it's a top-grade king-grade divine artifact, but its functions are more inclined towards defense, setting up formations, refining weapons, and refining pills. Its offensive power is still lacking. Moreover, I've only obtained it not long ago. I haven't refined it for many years and have yet to fully control it. Godly King Rahu stopped discussing this matter and reminded, Young master, these 7 godly kings have been killed. Only Xueshang managed to escape. This old servant is worried that he's already spread the news. We can't stay here any longer. We should leave as soon as possible to avoid being surrounded and killed by various experts. All right, Ji Tianqing nodded in response and said, Wait a moment. Let me collect the spoils of war first. After saying that, he released his divine sense and covered a radius of tens of thousands of miles to search for the spoils of war in the ruins. Godly King Rahu also hurried to help. The two of them not only collected the interspatial rings of the 7 godly kings, but also their godhead fragments. Godly King Rahu was puzzled as to why the young master wanted to collect the godhead fragments of the 7 godly kings. However, he thought that the young master might be using a soul-searching technique to find out some secrets or information, so he didn't ask further. Soon, the master and servant duo cleaned up the battlefield and quickly left. When the two of them passed through more than half of the star-devouring Grotto Heaven and arrived at the Grotto Heaven's entrance, they discovered that the area around the entrance was empty. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with some surprise, I thought that the divine array at the entrance could delay Xueshang. I didn't expect that guy to have already grasped the method to control the entrance. Godly King Rahu nodded and said, After all, they killed the entire Taotai clan. Xueshang is crafty and cunning, so he would definitely search the memories of the Taotai clan's elders. It's not strange that he could obtain the method to control the entrance. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and took out the primordial chaos bell and slapped it on the divine array's light wall. Immediately after, a crack appeared on the light wall and gradually formed a spatial door. Whoosh! The master and servant duo passed through the crack and left the star-devouring Grotto Heaven, returning to the dark abyss. The two of them returned to their invisible state and concealed their auras. Passing through the misty abyss, the two of them flew into the sky. At the same time, they spread their divine senses in all directions to investigate the situation around the abyss. They saw that the Chongqi clan's blood-red divine worship had already disappeared without a trace. The divine worships of the other 4 forces were still hovering above the abyss. However, the godly kings and godly lords guarding the divine worships were obviously anxious and worried. One look at their expressions and it was clear that they had already guessed that something had happened in the star-devouring Grotto Heaven. After all, they must have seen Xueshang fleeing in a panic and hurriedly driving the divine worship away. Godly King Rahu glanced coldly at those people and sent a voice transmission to Ji Tianqing. Young master, should we kill those people as well? Although he was loyal to his former master, the Heavenly Dragon Emperor, and was amiable to Ji Tianqing, he was still a snake. After all, he was a snake man and the leader of the Myriad Demon Alliance. He would not be soft-hearted and did not lack ruthlessness and decisiveness. However, Ji Tianqing rejected this suggestion and quietly left the abyss with him. No need. Those people from the other 4 forces are not clear about the situation in the Grotto Heaven. Moreover, there are too many of them and they have divine worships to rely on. It will take a lot of effort to kill them. It will be a waste of time. Young master is so kind and benevolent. Then this old servant will spare them. Luoho God King replied before leaving with Ji Tianqing. After 100 breaths, the two were 80,000 miles away from the abyss. Only then did Godly King Rahu take out the divine worship and fly north with Ji Tianqing. The mission for this trip had been completed. Although there were some flaws and loopholes, it was still satisfactory. Next, the master and servant only wanted to quietly return to the dark water region. They did not want any more twists and turns on the way. Moreover, they wanted to return to the Myriad Demon City before the news spread. Otherwise, the godly kings under the Xuanji Grotto Heaven would definitely rush over to kill Ji Tianqing. Once they learned of his whereabouts, the master and servant were powerful and had the backing of the Myriad Demon Alliance. Naturally, they were not afraid. However, if they were involved in these killings, it would be troublesome and a waste of time. However, how could the cunning and ruthless Xue Shang, who had suffered such a great loss today and suffered such heavy losses, swallow such humiliation and humiliation silently? Even if he was restrained by the heavenly oath and could not deal with Ji Tianxing. However, when he left the star-devouring grotto heaven, he spread the news and even informed the people of the Xuanji grotto heaven. Chapter 3704. Although Luoho's supreme being was only an avatar and his true body was still in outer space, he would not be back anytime soon. However, he was driving the divine warship and using the teleportation formations in many cities. His speed was already rare. However, the star-devouring grotto heaven was too far away from the myriad demon city. No matter how fast Luoho's supreme being was, it would take him more than 2 days to reach the myriad demon alliance. Xue Shang's message to the mysterious grotto heaven was delivered to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor in just 15 minutes. Then, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor calmly and decisively issued a series of orders to begin the encirclement plan. The targets of the orders were naturally the 6 domains between the Clear Sky domain and the Dark Water domain. In fact, Long Tian's disappearance in the Azure Snow region had already aroused the suspicion of the mysterious grotto heaven. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor issued a bounty and gathered all the Godly King experts in the northwest direction to search for and kill Ji Tianxing. The regions around the Azure Snow region were the focus of the search. A few days ago, a large number of Godly King experts and countless Godly Lord experts had entered the Azure Snow region, Clear Sky region, and Dark Water region. The various factions and Godly King experts had turned these regions upside down but could not find Long Tian. They were filled with murderous intent and had nowhere to vent it. Now that they had received the order from the mysterious grotto heaven, everyone was roused and began to move with murderous intent. Even though Long Tian's ferocious name had already spread, causing many god kings and various powers to fear him, Long Tian's ferocious name had already spread. However, that was in the past. Now that they had the mysterious grotto heaven as their backing, who would be afraid of a rootless duckweed? In everyone's opinion, no matter how strong Long Tian was, he was just an insignificant ant in front of the mysterious grotto heaven. After all, the mysterious grotto heaven was the overlord of this continent. The pitch-black divine warship sped through the sky like a black stream of light. Luoho's supreme being sat cross-legged in the front cabin in the center of the formation plate. He calmly controlled the formation and steered the divine warship. This old servant of the heavenly dragon emperor, the current leader of the Myriad Demon Alliance, had experienced countless storms in his life. His state of mind had long been tempered to be extremely resilient. He knew that the outside world was in turmoil and that undercurrents were surging. However, he was not flustered at all, nor was he worried. Of course, he didn't want anything to happen to the young master, so he made more preparations. Not long after he left the star-devouring cave, he sent a message back to the Myriad Demon Alliance and ordered a few elders to lead a large number of elites to eliminate the experts hiding in the Dark Water realm. Their mission was to ensure the safety of the Dark Water region and prevent anyone from intercepting or assassinating the young master. God King Luoho trusted Hu Xinyue and company's abilities greatly. Therefore, as long as he brought the young master back to the Dark Water realm, they would be safe. The only thing he had to worry about was the journey back to the Dark Water region. Inside the divine battleship, Ji Tianxing was not in the hall. He had already entered the secret chamber to meditate and count the spoils of war. This trip to the star-devouring paradise was his greatest gain so far. He spent a total of 5 days in the distorted space of the divine pagoda before he finished counting the spoils of war. The Godhead fragments of the 7 God Kings and the 7 spatial rings had brought him close to 4 trillion worth of resources and treasures. After all, the 7 God Kings who were killed were the leaders of various sects and forces. Naturally, they were rich. However, this wealth and resources were insignificant compared to the mineral veins. Ji Tianxing sorted it out. There were exactly 260 mineral veins dug out from the star-devouring cave. Most of them were star mineral veins that could be refined into precious star divine stones. A small number of mineral veins were even rarer divine stones that could be refined into precious divine gold. They were the best materials for refining high-end divine weapons. After Ji Tianxing counted the mineral veins, he realized that he had most of the materials needed to refine the sword of burial of heaven. There were only 2 or 3 supplementary materials left, which were not too difficult to obtain. He believed that the Myriad Demon Alliance would be able to gather them quickly with just a command. Only after returning to the Myriad Demon Alliance can I truly cultivate in seclusion and improve my strength. Then I have to refine the sword of burial of heaven and try to restore it to a king-grade divine weapon. At the very least it has to be a king-grade high-grade divine weapon. If I have spare time, I will use these minerals and metals to refine a set of divine weapon equipment for Yao Yao, Ku and Wushuang each. Thinking of this, he was very happy and satisfied. After counting the spoils of war, he put all the mineral veins into an interspatial ring. Swoosh! He flew through the distorted 5-colored space and landed on the other side of the bloody flame sacred tree, appearing in front of Yank. Yank had used a lot of divine power to mine in the star-devouring cave. At this moment he was meditating. Sensing Ji Tianxing's arrival, he quickly stopped meditating and stood up to salute. "Master, what are your orders?" Ji Tianxing handed him the interspatial ring and said with a smile, "I'll leave the mineral veins we dug out from the star-devouring cave to you. You've worked hard for a few years to refine those mineral veins." Although Yank was not surprised by this arrangement, he had already expected it. But when he thought of the more than 260 mineral veins, he could not help but frown and smile bitterly. "Master, this is too much, isn't it? Why don't you refine half of them first and store the rest?" It wasn't that Ji Tianxing hadn't thought of planting half of the mineral veins in the sword world, or the 5 elements world. Those mineral veins would continue to grow and strengthen with the flow of time. But the living beings in the sword world and the 5 elements world were too weak. These 2 worlds did not have enough divine power and spirit chi to nurture those mineral veins. So, he chuckled and said, "When you refine all these mineral veins, I'll introduce you to a group of little guys. Speaking of which, although those little guys are slightly weak, they have some connections with you. You have an innate advantage in drilling, mining and refining. I think you'll be interested." As expected. His words poked Yank's heart, causing Yank's eyes to widen with anticipation and excitement. "Really? What race are the little guys you're talking about?" He vaguely wondered if they were descendants of the rock race. Ji Tianxing deliberately kept him in suspense. He threw the interspatial ring to him and said with a smile, "You'll know when you finish the task." After that, he turned and flew away, leaving Yank scratching his head and muttering to himself. After a while, Ji Tianxing returned to the bloody flame sacred tree. He sat cross-legged, took out some godhead fragments and began to refine them. The right guardian of the Chongqi tribe, the second temple master of the Jifeng tribe, the second leader of the 3 Kings Temple, and the vice leader of the Shiha tribe, these 7 god kings were not to be underestimated. One of them was a 9th layer god king, 4 were 8th layer god king, and only 2 were 7th layer god king. In short, they were all upper god kings who had cultivated for more than 10,000 years. They were very strong. Ji Tianxing believed that after refining these 7 people's godhead fragments, his strength would increase by a few notches. Chapter 3705. It would take at least 2.5 days for Divine King Luoho to return to Thousand Demon City. Ji Tianxing could cultivate in seclusion for 100 days in the distorted space-time. He knew that the journey back to Thousand Demon City would not be peaceful, but he believed in Divine King Luoho's methods. He did not need to worry about small problems. It was indeed so. After leaving the star-devouring grotto heaven, Divine King Luoho's divine worship was pursued 13 times and intercepted 4 times. The 17 forces that pursued and intercepted the divine worship were all led by a few divine kings, and a large number of divine monarch experts. Of course, most of the divine kings were in the 5th to 7th stage. They had not encountered any 8th or 9th stage divine kings yet. Powerhouses of this level were simply too few in number. Normally, it was also very rare to see one. Originally, with Divine King Luoho's strength, he could kill all the forces even if he fought them head-on. But he disdained to do so as it would be a waste of time and delay the journey. Moreover, that was exactly what the Origin Dragon Emperor wanted. It would give him more time to plan and make arrangements. Therefore, Divine King Luoho used his rich experience and powerful strength to drive the divine worship away from the 13 groups of pursuers. No matter how hard the 13 groups of pursuers chased, they could only look at the back of the divine worship and sigh. They could not get close at all. As for the 4 interceptions, there was no way to avoid them. After all, those interceptors had set up arrays and ambushes, waiting for him to be exhausted. What Divine King Luoho could do was to avoid the traps and ambushes as much as possible to avoid being delayed and wasting time. If he could avoid them, he would do so. If he could not, he would charge forward recklessly. In this way, he successfully broke through the 4 interceptions and left safely. The 4 groups of interceptors also paid a terrible price. At least 16 divine kings and over 300 divine monarchs died under Divine King Luoho's divine worship and sharp blades. Just like that, the first day passed. At the same time, Divine King Luoho was halfway through his journey and entered the Azure Snow region. Back then, Hu Xinyue led the Thousand Demon Alliance experts to intercept Ji Tianqing in the Azure Snow region's Guiyin mountain range. In other words, Ji Tianqing went missing in the Azure Snow region. Naturally, half of the experts who had come to search for Ji Tianqing under the orders of the Profound Secrets Utopia were gathered in the realm of Azure Snow. This place was the focus of the various God Kings' search. Early in the morning, the sky had just begun to brighten. God King Rahu was piloting his divine battleship. He was flying through the clouds as fast as a stream of light. In order to avoid bumping into those interceptors, he didn't rush north in a straight line. Instead, he took a detour. Unfortunately, too many forces had gathered in the Azure Snow region. Under the command of the mysterious paradise, the various God Kings had long since made preparations for an ambush. Thus, God King Rahu welcomed the first batch of assassins of the day. Swish! Swish! Dozens of beams of divine light suddenly lit up in the sea of clouds in front of the divine ship. More than 40 figures appeared. 8 figures as large as mountains charged forward with an indomitable aura. God King Rahu had long since been on guard. He instantly saw that these were 8 God King experts. The 3 strongest people were all 7th stage realm upper level God Kings. The other 5 were all 6th stage realm middle level God Kings. These 8 God Kings executed their ultimate secret techniques and brandished their divine weapons. They used powerful killing moves to besiege the divine ship. And behind them there were 36 upper level God Lords. They formed the heavenly constellation Brilliant Star Battle Formation and charged forward aggressively. Clearly, this force was very strong. It far surpassed those interceptors yesterday. No matter how strong God King Rahu was, he couldn't pilot the divine ship and force his way through the interception of those experts. These interceptors are smart. They knew that by setting up the divine array in advance, I would sense it and take a detour to avoid it. Moreover, they have mastered a brilliant concealment technique. I only sensed their presence when I was only 10,000 miles away. Haha. They must have received guidance from the mysterious paradise? In the control room of the divine ship, God King Rahu sneered coldly. He finally stood up. Swish! He waved his hand and shot out a beam of divine light, keeping the divine ship. His figure, which was not very tall, appeared in the sky, and was rather thin and stooped. He faced the 8 God Kings and 36 God Kings alone with his saber. Strong winds blew in the sky. Killing intent blotted out the sky. The space within 20,000 miles was nearly frozen. God King Rahu stood proudly in the sky. He was not afraid. The strong winds blew his purple robe. His snow-white hair danced behind him. An indescribable confidence and dominance spread out from his body and swept through the world. The 8 godly kings and 36 godly sovereigns who were charging at him felt it the most directly. They were even a little dazed. They felt that they were not facing a white-haired old man but a towering mountain. As a result, everyone was under immense pressure. They were puzzled and fearful. Naturally, everyone's charging speed slowed down, and their momentum also weakened a lot. Who dares to be so impudent? God King Rahu pointed his saber at the ground. He didn't attack but asked in a booming voice. The moment he said this, the 8 God Kings froze. Strange expressions appeared on their faces. Fortunately, their leader raised his hand and ordered everyone to stop. Everyone hurriedly stopped their charge and stopped 100,000 feet away from God King Rahu. The 8 God Kings looked at each other and secretly communicated with their divine senses. Then, a tall and burly leader stepped forward and said expressionlessly, "We are from the sky-bearing sect in the south. We are under the orders of the Dragon Emperor to kill the evil Long Tian. Who are you? How are you related to Long Tian?" Hearing this, God King Luoho sneered and asked, "Someone from the sky-bearing sect? No wonder you don't recognize me. As for the Long Tian you speak of, I am also searching for him. I just don't have any leads at the moment." Only when they heard that did the God Kings come to a realization. As it turned out, the withered old man wanted to kill Long Tian just like them. However, the sky-bearing sect's great guardian obviously didn't believe God King Rahu's words. His gaze was sharp as he sized up God King Rahu. He asked, "Although we are from the south, we are not unfamiliar with the various experts and top forces in the north. From your tone, you seem to be a hero of the north? Please forgive this king's poor eyesight. Your excellency looks very unfamiliar. May I know which force your excellency is from?" Clearly, God King Rahu had used some means to change his appearance. When he first saw Ji Tianqing, his appearance was that of a burly man over 10 feet tall with a head full of purplish-black hair. He looked like a middle-aged man. Now, he had become a thin and stooped white-haired old man. His aura was also gloomier and more ruthless. He was like a cold and sinister venomous snake, choosing its prey to devour. No one knew which was his true appearance between the burly man and the white-haired old man. Chapter 3706. Divine King Luoho ignored the question of the sky-bearing sect's great guardian and did not answer. He released an invisible pressure, secretly intimidating everyone in the field. It was only after the God Kings showed fear on their faces and the 36 God Sovereigns trembled with fear that he spoke. "You're in my territory but you don't even know who I am. What a joke." Divine King Luoho narrowed his eyes and stared at the sky-bearing sect's great guardian. He laughed coldly. "Get lost. Don't delay my search for Long Tian's whereabouts." With that, he charged over domineeringly as fast as a flash of light. His powerful aura struck fear into the hearts of the sky-bearing sect's experts, causing them to avoid him. Originally, the sky-bearing sect's great guardian still had doubts, but after hearing Divine King Luoho's words and seeing how domineering he was, he actually felt a little guilty. Could I have guessed wrongly? Is this guy really a hero of the Northwest? And he's also searching for Long Tian? He said this is his territory, but he's not the Azure Snow Domain Lord. Who exactly is he? These questions popped up in the sky-bearing sect's great guardian's mind. As a result, when God King Luoho got close, he and the other God Kings beside him subconsciously stepped aside. In the blink of an eye, Divine King Luoho passed by everyone and flew north, about to leave. The sky-bearing sect's great guardian and the other divine kings stared at his departing figure with furrowed brows. For some reason, the great guardian felt that something was amiss. Therefore, he released his divine sense 30,000 miles away, wanting to see if the person hiding in the dark had any instructions. However, that person was invisible, and even the great guardian's divine sense could not detect him. He could only think that if that person did not show up, it meant that the white-haired old man was fine. If there was something wrong with that white-haired old man, the great guardian did not have time to think about it. In the sky 30,000 kilometers to the north, a dazzling divine light that could split the sky and the earth suddenly lit up. It was a 10,000-foot-long blade light that resembled a giant axe that could split the heavens. It descended from the sky as if the heavens were angry, breaking through the blue sky and slashing toward the white-haired old man. It seemed like a simple and ordinary blade, but it was so powerful that it was invincible. The 30,000-meter-long saber light contained more than 140 types of law divine power, suppressing the world within 30,000 miles. All of a sudden, the 40-odd people from the sky-bearing sect were stunned by the dazzling saber strike. However, God King Rahu, who was in an incomparably dangerous situation, did not panic at all. This was because from the moment he had put away the divine worship, he had predicted that this blade would appear. The 40 over people from the sky-bearing sect were nothing in his eyes. If he had to fight, he was confident that he could kill all of them within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. However, the expert hiding in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to strike, was the most important. Therefore, after God King Rahu put away the divine battleship, he changed his appearance to that of a white-haired old man. Furthermore, he did not fight with the people of the sky-bearing sect. Instead, he pretended to be a hero of the Northwest and chased after Long Tian. It wasn't that he was afraid of anyone, but he didn't want to expose his identity, and he didn't want to expose the whereabouts of the young master. If he could easily return to the Thousand Demon City, why would he need to go on a killing spree? In the end, if Enigma Grotto Heaven were to guess where the young master was hiding, it would inevitably lead to a long period of harassment and chaos. What was the point? However, God King Rahu still underestimated the expert hiding in the dark. He was so decisive and ruthless that he would rather kill the wrong person than let the wrong person go. Based on this point alone, God King Rahu could conclude that this expert must be from Enigma Grotto Heaven. Moreover, he was a trusted aide of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, a ninth heaven realm god king. Sky-raising palm. When the blade light that could split heaven and earth descended and was about to strike his head, God King Rahu raised both his palms without hesitation and used his ultimate skill. Instantly, 2 dark golden dragon claws as large as mountains appeared and attacked from both sides, ruthlessly slapping the blade light. Kaboom! A thunderous boom erupted, reverberating endlessly between heaven and earth. That resplendent, dazzling and extremely gorgeous blade light was smashed into pieces by the 2 dragon claws. The supreme pressure that came with that blade light also collapsed and dissipated. However, the 2 dark golden dragon claws also became slightly transparent after their energy was depleted. God King Rahu frowned, clearly dissatisfied with this result. After all, he was just an avatar and only had 50% of his original body's strength. If his original body was here, it would be easier. After the 2 sides exchanged one move, there was nothing else. Divine light flashed between heaven and earth and strong winds blew, but the 2 experts did not make any more moves. Clap, clap, clap. Very abruptly, applause rang out from the divine light that filled the sky, spreading out. When the fragments of divine light dissipated, a thin and tall figure appeared in the sky out of thin air. This was a middle-aged man from the Golden Crow clan with a head full of black hair and dark golden skin. His face was narrow and cold. His dark purple eyes and golden pupils exuded an extremely cold and dangerous aura. If Ji Tianxing was here, he would definitely recognize this person. It was the gatekeeper, who had mocked him at the entrance of Enigma Grotto Heaven and injured him. This person was 100 miles away from God King Rahu. They looked at each other with cold and indifferent eyes. God King Rahu stared at him and said coldly, "Enigma Grotto Heaven's general manager, God King Thoughtless." God King Thoughtless nodded slightly and admitted his identity. He sneered and said, "His Majesty the Dragon Emperor has ordered me to come personally. However, you have such strength and skills, yet you show your face in front of others. What is the meaning of this?" Obviously, God King Rahu's disguise could not fool him. However, he could not see God King Rahu's true identity for now. Before God King Rahu could say anything, God King Thoughtless rubbed his chin and said with a smile, "Just now, you said that this is your territory. That's not right. The entire Starsource continent is His Majesty the Dragon Emperor's territory. Everyone is his subject. Although you changed your appearance and pretended to be profound to hide your identity, given your strength, there are only a few like you in the entire Starsource continent. If I'm not wrong, you should be that mysterious Myriad Demon Alliance leader, right?" God King Rahu knew that he could not hide it from him, so he did not deny it. In any case, what he did just now was just the first line of defense. He sneered and said, "Since you know my identity, you still dare to kill me. Have you thought of the consequences?" "Huh?" God King Thoughtless laughed loudly as if he was extremely happy. There was no killing intent on his body. His Majesty the Dragon Emperor said long ago that the Myriad Demon Alliance is expanding so unscrupulously, and even calls itself the leader of the Northwest. The Alliance leader must be a bold person. Today I see that it is indeed so. After saying that, He raised a finger at God King Rahu and waved it. He sneered and said, "However, you don't dare to kill me." God King Rahu's expression did not change. He still sneered and said, "Since you are so confident, why don't you try?" God King Thoughtless did not waste his breath on him. He retracted his cold smile and said coldly, "Cut the crap. Hand over Long Tian." Wonderful Book House. Chapter 3707. Heartless Divine King's words made Luoho Divine King's heart thumped. Although Heartless Divine King was lying in ambush here, daring to make a move proved that he had his suspicions. But Heartless Divine King's tone was so certain that it still made Luoho Divine King feel surprised and shocked. But he guessed that the other party was just suspecting and guessing and definitely did not have any evidence, so this move was most likely probing. Moreover, he had always been shrewd, so how could he possibly expose himself at this moment? He perfectly revealed a stunned expression before frowning. His face was filled with a cold smile as he looked at the Heartless Divine King with a hint of anger. Heartless Divine King, water must have entered your brain. This seed is currently searching everywhere for Long Tian's traces, and haven't found him yet, so how can I hand him over to you? Moreover, not only Profound Secrets Grotto Heaven is offering a bounty for him, our alliance has already offered a sky-high reward and sent out countless experts to search for him. If we really find him, our alliance will deal with him naturally, so how can we hand him over to you? Seeing that Luoho Divine King's expression did not seem to be fake, Heartless Divine King was stunned for a moment. He frowned and sized up Luoho Divine King for a moment, not knowing what he was thinking. At this moment, more than 40 experts from the Sky-Bearing sect hurried over. Although they did not receive Heartless Divine King's instructions, they did not dare to make a move against Luoho Divine King. But they still maintained their vigilance and spread out, surrounding Luoho Divine King. Luoho Divine King was extremely confident as he ignored everyone from Sky-Bearing sect and stared at Heartless Divine King, saying expressionlessly, "If Profound Secrets Grotto Heaven feels that our alliance's rise threatens Dragon Emperor's rule, we can have an open battle." This seat might admire Dragon Emperor's domineering attitude, but this kind of secretive means really makes this seat look down on you. Moreover, are you even fit to make a move against this seat? Call your Dragon Emperor over instead. Luoho Divine King's tone was arrogant and his attitude was contemptuous, totally disregarding Heartless Divine King. Heartless Divine King was unable to restrain his anger as he sneered. "Luoho, stop pretending and don't try to change the topic. Don't forget that Shueshang, who informed this king, is also a 9th stage realm Divine King. Do you really think that no one knows what happened in Star-Devouring Grotto Heaven?" Apparently, Shueshang had mentioned that Long Tian's invisible companion was probably from the 10,000 Demon Alliance when he reported to him. Originally, after Long Tian was killed by Hu Xinyue and the others, he had completely disappeared without a trace. The Enigma Grotto Heaven had ordered people to search for 2 months, but they still couldn't find any trace of Long Tian. Since then, the mysterious paradise had suspected that Long Tian's disappearance had something to do with the Myriad Demon Alliance. However, without concrete evidence, the Xuanji Grotto was not in a hurry to fall out with the Myriad Demon League. It wasn't until the Star-Devouring Paradise's incident that Shueshang sent a message that the Mystery Paradise confirmed their guess. That was the reason why the Heartless God King had appeared and attacked the Rahu God King. After understanding the crux of the matter, Luoho God King naturally harbored hatred and murderous intent towards the Chongqi clan and Shueshang. After this, the 10,000 Demon Alliance would definitely find an excuse and opportunity to punish the Chongqi clan. However, he had to get through this hurdle. Haha, what are you talking about? This seat doesn't understand. Divine King Rahu swept a cold glance at Divine King Heartless, his face filled with disdain. No matter what he thought in his heart, he could not admit it at this moment. The Heartless God King was thoroughly enraged and also lost his patience. He said with a hideous grin on his face, "Fine. Since Alliance head Rahu insists on playing dumb, then don't blame this king for not being courteous." When his voice fell, he accumulated divine power frenziedly, his entire body bursting with shocking murderous intent. The 40 over powerhouses of the Sky-Bearing sect also became nervous all of a sudden, gripping their swords and sabers tightly. As long as the heartless God King gave the order, they would have to brace themselves and risk their lives. Divine King Rahu was still fearless. He cast a sidelong glance at the heartless God King and said with a cold smile, "Haha, since the Enigma Grotto heaven is bent on falling out, then don't blame this seat for being ruthless." In the recent few hundred years, the Myriad Demon Alliance and the Enigma Grotto heaven maintained a certain balance. Although both sides predicted in their hearts that there would be a day where they would fall out and go to war sooner or later. However, this day clearly came too early. The heartless God King hesitated for a moment, but was still unwilling to tarnish the Enigma Grotto heaven's reputation. Gnashing his teeth, he said, "You're a peak God King. This king is naturally not your match. But there are so many of us. Dealing with one incarnation of yours, I believe it should still be very easy." Without a doubt, Ji Tianxing was able to tell that the Rahu God King was an avatar, so the heartless God King naturally could tell too. After all, he was a 9th stage realm God King. Furthermore, his strength was even stronger than Xueshang and Tao Yongsheng. Since that's the case, then cut the crap. Let's see who's real. The Rahu God King gave a cold cry and suddenly attacked. His entire body burst forth with boundless lightning. Boom! Crack! He spread open both arms, his beard and hair fluttering. Millions of purple lightning surged out from his entire body, sweeping in all directions. The 40 people of the sky-bearing sect were just about to brandish their swords and sabers to surround and attack when they were drowned by the incoming lightning sea. Only to hear muffled bangs lingering on incessantly. Those 36 high-ranked divine lords were instantly turned into charcoal by the millions of lightning bolts. That was not ordinary lightning. That was a furious attack of a peak God King. It contained 200 kinds of laws and divine powers. Not only did the 36 divine lords perish on the spot, their divine bodies turning into pitch-black ashes and their divine sparks disintegrating. Even the few God Kings of the sky-bearing sect were struck by the lightning until they were covered in ash and charred black. Amidst a series of violent coughs, the few God Kings were sent flying tens of thousands of feet away, blood spurting out of their noses and mouths continuously. But the heartless God King was long prepared. He did not allow the lightning to get close to him at all and had already retreated hundreds of miles, disappearing into the sky. The next instant, without waiting for the lightning to spread out, the heartless God King appeared out of thin air behind the Rahu God King. In his hands, he had already grasped 2 pitch-black, sharp-curved blades and stabbed towards the Rahu God King with a tremendous force. More than 10 icy-cold black lights with the aura of death locked onto the Rahu God King's vital points. The black lights were silent. They were neither dazzling nor did they have earth-shattering momentum or light shadows. But their power made the Rahu God King feel apprehensive. Evidently, the heartless God King with a cold and ruthless aura was not a mighty expert who faced steel head-on. Instead, he was a treacherous assassin who lurked in the darkness and pursued a one-hit kill. The Rahu God King had already expected this. Without waiting for the heartless God King's nomological divine powers to seal the space, he took a step forward. Swish! This step was 1,000 miles away. The sky-bearing sect experts who had yet to recover from their shock hurriedly chased after the Rahu God King when they lost sight of him. The heartless God King's assassination failed, and his figure disappeared once again. The next instant, he also appeared 1,000 miles away, above the Rahu God King's head out of thin air, silently waving his blade to stab. This time the Rahu God King did not retreat. With a flip of his right hand, a pitch-black divine blade appeared and slashed at the heartless God King. The multicolored saber light suddenly bloomed, as dazzling as the scorching sun. Book guest residence reading website. Chapter 3708. Kaboom! The 5-colored saber light clashed with the black light of death, resulting in a thunderous explosion. The 2 saber lights shattered at the same time, scattering fragments of divine light everywhere. The heartless divine king's strength was ultimately a little weaker. He was sent flying on the spot. However, he disappeared in a flash of white light in midair. After failing 2 consecutive attacks, he was no longer in a hurry to attack. Instead, he hid himself and waited for a better opportunity. At this moment, the 8 divine kings of the sky-bearing sect had arrived. Ignoring their injuries, they brandished their weapons and launched a joint attack. Although they were weaker, they had the advantage in numbers. Furthermore, they occupied 8 positions in the universe. Their combined attack was not to be underestimated. Swish! 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 The sky was filled with saber lights and sword shadows, the brilliance of divine techniques, and a sea of ice arrows and fire. All of them blasted toward the Luoho Divine King. The Luoho Divine King remained expressionless. His left palm struck out 4 palm shadows that transformed into 4 huge stars that emitted endless starlight. Bam! 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 The attacks of the 8 divine kings were all blocked by the 4 dazzling stars. Amid the dull thuds, divine light scattered everywhere, illuminating a radius of 50,000 miles. The incomparably violent shockwave sent a few god kings flying. Naturally, it broke the battle formation of the 8 god kings. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the Luoho Divine King brandished his pitch-black saber and slashed out more than 300 saber lights in an instant. Swish! 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 Instantly, the sky within a radius of 20,000 miles was sliced into pieces by the saber lights. Among the 8 divine kings, 4 of them died on the spot, minced into pieces by the saber lights. The other 4 were also severely injured, including the sky-bearing sect's great guardian. All of them were sent flying with blood all over their bodies. At the same time, the heartless divine king, who had been hiding in the dark, finally found an opportunity to strike. It was unknown how he had passed through the shattered space, but he had strangely appeared next to God King Rahu. His 2 scimitars slashed out soundlessly. The space was silently sliced apart. More than 180 types of divine power of laws sealed off the area and suppressed the Luoho Divine King. However, the Luoho Divine King remained calm as though he had expected the heartless Divine King to strike. Without even turning his head, he punched out with his left hand. Swish! There was no fist aura, but there was a pitch-black vortex that instantly grew to the size of a mountain and swallowed everything. This vortex was like a black hole. Whether it was the air, divine power, or light, everything was devoured. If the heartless God King did not stop, he would definitely be engulfed by the black hole. At this moment, a trace of hatred flashed through the heartless Divine King's eyes. He unwillingly withdrew his hand and turned invisible again, retreating far away. God King Rahu did not give chase. Instead, he used his left arm to change the direction of his attack, sending the vortex towards the other 2. The 2 heavily injured divine kings of the sky-bearing sect were instantly swallowed by the vortex and disappeared. God King Rahu didn't even look at their fates. He brandished his saber and charged towards the remaining 2 god kings. The 2 lucky survivors were the Great Guardian and Great Elder of the sky-bearing sect. They were both 8th-degree realm divine kings. The 2 of them knew that they would not be able to escape unscathed. Thus, they became ruthless and did not hesitate to use a forbidden technique by harming themselves. He did not have any extravagant hopes of killing God King Rahu. He only hoped that he could stall for a moment and buy some time for God King Thoughtless. Fortunately, it worked. Even though God King Rahu was powerful, he was delayed by the 2 of them and was unable to kill them for the time being. This was the opportunity that the 2 god kings exchanged their lives for God King Thoughtless. God King Thoughtless naturally would not miss this opportunity. He took the opportunity to launch a series of attacks. Each attack was more exquisite and dangerous than the previous. On the other hand, God King Rahu was like an indomitable giant mountain. He was methodical and unshakable from start to finish. Both parties clashed again and again. Time passed quietly. Even though the battle between the 2 top experts did not cause the mountains to crumble and the earth to split or the sun and moon to change their colors. In comparison, it was not as shocking as the 2 god kings' ultimate techniques of the sky-bearing sect. However, the various techniques that God King Rahu and God King Thoughtless executed were all top remarkable ultimate techniques. Their strength, foundation, control of divine power and laws were also exquisite to the peak. It was breathtaking. The dangers involved were even more unimaginable. Finally, 100 breaths time passed. The Great Guardian and Great Elder's forbidden techniques gradually lost their effects and started to backfire on themselves. The two of them were already badly mutilated and in a wretched state. Their internal organs, meridians, and consciousness all suffered a backlash, causing their strength to plummet and their consciousness to blur. God King Rahu attacked calmly and decisively, killing the great elder of sky-bearing sect quickly. Even though God King Thoughtless tried to stop him, it was useless. He was injured by God King Rahu and was sent flying. When God King Rahu finished off the great elder, he charged towards the great guardian. A ferocious look flashed across the eyes of the great guardian of sky-bearing sect. He seemed to have made a decision. His eyes were filled with despair and determination. Swoosh! Thus, his entire body ignited with soaring blood fire. His divine body swelled and burned violently. A destructive power was brewing in his body, and it was about to explode. Self-destruct. God King Rahu was shocked and his brows furrowed tightly. He did not expect that sky-bearing sect would be so reckless to do something for Shwanji Grotto Heaven. To think that sky-bearing sect would be so daring to suck up to Shwanji Grotto Heaven. Although the Great Guardian's strength did not pose a threat to him. But the Great Guardian self-destructed on the spot and he was too close. Even if he did not die from the explosion, he would be severely injured. Therefore, God King Rahu did not hesitate at all. He immediately slashed his saber across the sky and teleported away. Boom! Almost at the same time he stepped into the crack in space. The Great Guardian of sky-bearing sect's body swelled to the maximum and exploded. A dazzling 5-colored light exploded high in the sky and spread, illuminating a radius of 100,000 miles. That dazzling light was released violently and expanded to a radius of 100,000 miles in the blink of an eye. Thus, this radius of 100,000 miles was shattered and turned into a pitch-black void. Whether it was space, earth, mountains, divine energy, or the corpses and weapons of those god kings, everything was blown into nothingness. The self-destruction of an 8th heaven realm god king was so terrifying. Of course, that terrifying 5-colored shockwave was much weaker after destroying a radius of 100,000 miles. However, it still continued to spread in all directions. Wherever the 5-colored light passed, the heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. All living beings were turned into ashes. Finally, the pitch-black cracks that filled the sky and the ravines that ran through the earth extended to a radius of 200,000 miles before everything ended. The 5-colored light gradually dissipated and returned to heaven and earth. The shattered and devastated space of 200,000 miles also gradually calmed down. The void of 100,000 miles caused by the self-destruction quickly healed under the will of the heavenly Tao. At the edge of the self-destruction area, God King Rahu stood on top of the clouds and gazed at the pitch-black void in the distance. He could not help but murmur, "Shwanji Grotto Heaven's determination is really unexpected." After saying that, he could not help but cough and blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. The previous battle and forcefully traversing through space to escape from the self-destruction area had injured him. Fortunately, it was only a minor injury. Chapter 3709. Compared to God King Luoho's light injuries, God King Wuxin's injuries were more tragic. At this moment he was also standing at the edge of the self-destruction zone. He was less than 10,000 feet away from the ravines and spatial cracks that filled the sky. Even the continuous mountain range behind him had been reduced to a pile of yellow soil and ruins. Sigh. The Dragon Emperor was too impatient. God King Wuxin's face was pale as he let out a long sigh. Then, he used his sleeve to wipe away the blood on his face and circulated his energy to suppress the injuries in his body. His long robe was already in tatters. A large pile of blood-soaked rags fluttered in the wind. There were bloody holes on his chest and back. They were as long as chopsticks and were so deep that his bones could be seen. Divine blood was still gushing out of them. His divine power aura was naturally in a mess. Even his mind was tired. As he silently circulated his energy to heal his injuries, he stared into the distant void with lifeless eyes. He was thinking about other things. Within 1,000 years, 2 peak god kings have appeared on the continent. One of them even established the Myriad Demon Alliance, which shocked the Northwest. His Highness has been concerned about the outer region, and has ignored worldly affairs for too long. Naturally, He does not know the severity of the situation. The current star source continent is not as easy to control as it was in the past. After muttering to himself, God King Wuxin turned and left, disappearing into the clear sky. This assassination attempt was also a test. Naturally, it ended in failure. Of course, from a certain perspective, it was not necessarily a failure. After this incident, we have fallen out. I'm afraid it will be difficult to maintain the balance. God King Luoho muttered to himself as he watched the distant void heal and the clear sky appear again. Then he turned and left. After flying for a short distance, he summoned the divine warship and drove it back. At this moment, his consciousness detected that Ji Tianqing had pushed open the door of the secret chamber and was walking out. Seeing Ji Tianqing's calm expression and frown, God King Luoho knew that he already knew about what had happened. As expected, after a while, Ji Tianqing walked into the cabin of the divine warship and asked, "Injured?" Although he had been cultivating in seclusion in the divine tower in the secret chamber. But every once in a while, he would leave the divine pagoda to investigate the situation outside. And God King Rahu did not wish for such trivial matters to disturb Ji Tianqing's cultivation. Encountering the heartless divine king's ambush was naturally a huge matter. But Ji Tianqing could not reveal himself. Seeing that Ji Tianqing's first question was not about the enemy but about his injuries, God King Rahu's heart warmed slightly. He nodded and smiled. "It's just a small injury. Nothing to worry about. Young master, you don't have to worry." Ji Tianqing nodded and asked, "Are you from the Xuanji Grotto?" "Yes." Luoho Deity King nodded again and explained, "Mystical Grotto Heaven's general manager, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's right-hand man, the Heartless Deity King. In addition, there were 8 divine kings and 36 divine monarchs from the Southern Sky-bearing sect. However, don't worry, young master. The Enigma Grotto only has suspicions. They can't confirm it." Heartless Divine King? Ji Tianqing frowned and narrowed his eyes. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He naturally ignored the people from the Sky-bearing sect. Only this Heartless Divine King made his killing intent surge. "Our whereabouts were concealed and I did not reveal myself, but the Xuanji Grotto was still suspicious and sent people to ambush us. It seems that the news was leaked by Xue Shang. He had already sensed something amiss in the star-devouring grotto." Ji Tianqing analyzed calmly, but the killing intent in his eyes grew thicker. "Since Xue Shang went against the heavenly law's oath and used others to kill me, then I can only send the Chongqi tribe to hell and reunite with the Taotai tribe." God King Rahu nodded in agreement but still advised, "Of course we have to take revenge, but there's no rush. The Xuanji Grotto is already suspicious of the Thousand Demon Alliance, and did not hesitate to attack. I'm afraid they will deploy troops to monitor the Thousand Demon City." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, "If it were other forces, even if they were suspicious, they could only continue to investigate until they found evidence. But the Xuanji Grotto, they only need to suspect and have a reason to attack. Quickly pass down the order for the Thousand Demon Alliance to withdraw their defenses and be on full alert." God King Rahu was stunned and asked, "Young master, you mean that the Xuanji Grotto will no longer tolerate the Thousand Demon Alliance, and will use this opportunity to eradicate the Thousand Demon Alliance?" Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "The Thousand Demon Alliance has already threatened the Xuanji Grotto's rule. However, you have always been cautious and did not directly clash with the Xuanji Grotto, making it difficult for them to seize the opportunity. This is a pretty good excuse for the mystical utopia paradise. This excuse is a little far-fetched compared to a decisive battle between two forces." God King Rahu frowned and thought for a while, still in disbelief. Ji Tianqing did not try to persuade him anymore. He smiled and said, "I also hope that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor will not be so reckless. Otherwise, if the two forces really fight, half of the astral source continent will fall into chaos. However, you have to be careful. After all, your true body is in outer space and will not be able to rush back in a short time." God King Rahu was silent. After a long while, he nodded in agreement. Ji Tianqing continued, "Since the heartless God King dared to ambush you, you should have killed him. First, cut off one of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's arms. Then, the Xuanji Grotto will have a much harder time dealing with the Thousand Demon Alliance. God King Rahu smiled bitterly and said, "If I really killed him, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor will probably go crazy and destroy the Thousand Demon Alliance at all costs. Moreover, the Heartless God King is the best assassin in this world. Although he is not as strong as me, he can still preserve his life. You also know that an assassin and an expert are two different things." Ji Tianqing shook his head and said with an indifferent expression, "To the people of the mortal domain, there is indeed a difference between an assassin and an expert. One is proficient in concealment and assassination, and is good at killing people at the smallest price. The other, on the other hand, is open and aboveboard fighting force with force. In comparison, an assassin is indeed better at killing and escaping. However, this difference does not exist for godly monarchs and godly kings." God King Rahu fell silent and did not argue, because that was the truth. What godly monarchs and godly kings competed in was strength, foundation, the exquisiteness of their abilities, the number of laws they had grasped, and the ingenuity of their usage. The top assassin, the Heartless God King, had grasped the various laws and abilities. In fact, he did not have more than Ji Tianqing and Rahu. If they were to compete in assassination techniques, Ji Tianqing might not lose to the Heartless God King. However, the main reason why God King Rahu did not kill the Heartless God King was because of the self-destruction of the sky-bearing sect's great guardian. The two were silent for a moment, then Ji Tianqing continued, "Forget it, there is no point in discussing this now. It's good that the Heartless God King is not dead. I can kill him personally in the future to take revenge." God King Rahu nodded and asked, "Then what next? What are your plans, young master?" Ji Tianqing smiled and said with a playful tone, "Everything is ready. Naturally, I will return to the Thousand Demon City and conserve my energy. Only with stronger strength and sharper swords can I deal with the upcoming war." Chapter 37:10. For the rest of the day. On the way back to the Dark Water region, the divine warship was intercepted 3 more times. Fortunately, those interceptors were the lords of the various regions and factions. None of them were the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's right-hand men. Those ordinary god kings were no threat to God King Luoho at all. Every time the divine warship was intercepted, God King Luoho would personally take care of the audacious interceptors. Ji Tianqing remained in the divine warship and did not show himself. Of course, God King Luoho also remembered Ji Tianqing's instructions. After every battle, he would take away the godhead fragments and interspatial rings of the god kings. In his view, the young master was unwilling to take the resources of the Myriad Demon Alliance. That was why he cared about these spoils. This warmed his heart and made him even more determined to use the Myriad Demon Alliance's strength to protect the young master. At night, the divine warship finally returned to the Dark Water region. Although there were many God King experts hiding in the Dark Water region, trying to kill Long Tian, the Myriad Demon Alliance was the Myriad Demon Alliance's territory. However, the Dark Water Realm was the headquarters of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. A day ago, Hu Xinyue and a few elders led a large group of elites to eliminate all suspicious people around the Black Sea. From the capital city in the south of the Dark Water region all the way to the Myriad Demon City, countless Myriad Demon Alliance experts were hiding. Therefore, when Ji Tianqing and God King Luoho flew out of the capital city, Hu Xinyue and a few elders received the news. God King Luoho took out the divine warship and continued flying toward the Myriad Demon City. The elders and experts of the Myriad Demon Alliance secretly escorted them all the way back. Late at night, the divine warship finally returned to the Myriad Demon City and disappeared into the depths of the luxurious palace. "Young master, you only need to cultivate in peace. Leave everything else to me." God King Luoho sent Ji Tianqing into a secret room and said with a smile, "I will do as you say and tighten the defenses. No matter how angry the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor is, as long as he is not crazy, he will not attack the Myriad Demon City by force." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and took out a jade scroll. He said, "I want to forge a divine sword. I still lack 3 sets of materials. Although they are not the best, they are relatively rare. Please put in some effort and help me gather these materials." God King Rahu did not hesitate at all as he took the jade slip and said, "Young master, don't worry. This old servant will get it done as soon as possible." After he finished speaking, he bowed and left the room. The door to the secret room slowly closed, and the room fell into darkness. Only the divine stones on the surrounding walls shone with a faint light. Ji Tianqing collected his thoughts. He took out the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes pagoda and placed it on the jade table in front of him. Then he entered the distorted space-time of the divine pagoda and returned to the blood flame sacred tree to cultivate in seclusion. The first thing to do was naturally to check the spoils of war. The spoils of war obtained from the star-devouring paradise were accounted for on the way. The spoils of war he was looking through came from the god kings that God King Rahu had slain on the way back. Although there weren't any powerful figures among those god kings, most of them were middle-level god kings and a few of them were 7th-stage realm god kings. However, they were after all the leaders of their respective forces and the domain lords of their respective domains. Naturally, they were wealthy. 8 hours later, Ji Tianqing was done with his inventory. There were a total of 16 pieces of Godhead fragments, various cultivation resources and treasures, which added up to close to 5 trillion. Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and picked out some middle and upper-level king-grade materials and god artifacts from the mountain of cultivation resources. There were also some medicinal pills. Of course, he also picked out a few more special treasures that he didn't even know the use of. Other than that, he sent all the resources and treasures into the heaven-mending pearl and transferred them to the 5 elements world. In the past, his family was too poor. Even if he had the idea of cultivating the 5 elements world, it was difficult to execute. Now it was different. Sitting on resources worth hundreds of trillion, he didn't feel any heartache when cultivating the 5 elements world. Moreover, the number of times he cultivated the 5 elements world was increasing. After all, the development of the 5 elements world was also increasing his strength. Resources and divine items worth more than 4 trillion should be able to trigger an explosion of spiritual energy when sent into the 5 elements world, causing the 5 elements world to expand a little. Muttering silently, he put away his distracting thoughts and began to refine the Godhead fragments. It was worth mentioning that he had been in seclusion in the distorted space for 3 months on the way back. He had refined all the Godhead fragments including the right guardian of the Chongqi clan and the second palace master of Jifeng. At this time his strength had reached the late stage of the 6th level divine king realm. He was not far from the peak. The number of divine laws he had mastered had reached a shocking 720. Therefore, his goal for this seclusion was very simple. He wanted to break through to the 7th level divine king realm and enter the upper level divine king realm. Whoosh! Ji Tianqing sat cross-legged, holding a ball of Godhead fragments in each hand and silently channeling the devouring divine ability. The Godhead fragments that were as translucent as jade and extremely hard, as they were devoured and absorbed by him, were releasing wisps of divine power that were continuously poured into the heaven-mending orb. After being purified by the heaven-mending pearl, the divine power of various attributes was converted into pure energy that was injected into his body and became his power. As time passed, his strength began to increase steadily. Every few days, he would be able to refine a new divine Tao law from the quintessence fragment. Ji Tianqing was in seclusion in the distorted space of time, and was not disturbed by anyone. However, the Thousand Demon City was not as peaceful as it was in the past. It was in a tense atmosphere. The leader of the alliance, Divine King Luo Ho, personally commanded the branches to withdraw their defenses and secretly transfer their assets. A few elders and a dozen heavenly kings led a large group of elite experts and were busy with different tasks. At the same time, the Thousand Demon City was under full martial law and prohibited its citizens from entering and leaving as they wished. Anyone who entered or left the Thousand Demon City had to go through a series of checks. Moreover, there were large groups of guards patrolling the Black Sea. Many experts were hiding in the dark. In short, the Black Sea with the Thousand Demon City as the center was under heavy guard. They could gather all their strength at any time to deal with any unexpected situation. Although the Thousand Demon Alliance's actions made the people of the Alliance slightly nervous and puzzled. However, the prestige of the Alliance Master and the various elders had long been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Therefore, countless members of the alliance could remain calm and carry out their orders loyally. As for the reason, it was not something they should consider. In addition to the changes in the Thousand Demon Alliance, the spies scattered everywhere also received countless reports. In just a few days, many powerful forces and Divine King experts had rushed to the Dark Water region from all directions. The Dark Water region was now filled with undercurrents and was extremely dangerous. Some of the smarter ones had already guessed that the forces and experts coming from all directions were naturally following the orders of the mysterious paradise. In short, they were all the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's lackeys. The eagles and hounds came in a menacing manner and did not hide their intentions. That's right, they were all coming for the Thousand Demon Alliance. A question that had been suppressed in the bottom of their hearts for a long time, but was unwilling to think about it, once again filled the minds of the Thousand Demon Alliance members. The same thought flashed through everyone's mind. Is the mysterious Paradise's Dragon Emperor finally going to declare war on the Thousand Demon Alliance? Chapter 37:11. As the saying went, a mountain could not accommodate two tigers. Even a 3-year-old child understood this principle, so the people of the Astral Source continent and the Immortals naturally understood it as well. If the Myriad Demon Alliance was only a first-rate faction that could barely influence the surrounding regions, they would be safe. At the very least, the wise, magnanimous Dragon Emperor would not care about the Myriad Demon Alliance at all, much less destroy them. If the Myriad Demon Alliance was like the sky-bearing sect in the south, which ruled half of the southern continent, but followed the lead of the Xuanji Grotto and was willing to be the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's lackey, they would be safe too. However, the Myriad Demon Alliance was too powerful. They controlled the various regions of the northwest and vaguely threatened the rule of the Xuanji Grotto. More importantly, the Myriad Demon Alliance leader had established his own faction and had no intention of obeying the Xuanji Grotto. Any overlord would want to get rid of such a fast-rising, powerful, and uncontrollable force. There would definitely be a battle between the two tigers. However, the Myriad Demon Alliance and the people of the world did not expect this battle to come so suddenly. It caught everyone off guard. Fortunately, there were many smart people in the Myriad Demon Alliance and the heroes of the world. Many people could guess that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor had not interfered with the affairs of the world for hundreds of years. He was just looking for an excuse to beat the Myriad Demon Alliance. There would definitely not be a decisive battle between the two sides. Otherwise, the entire Astral Source continent would be in chaos. Moreover, this chaos would last for hundreds or thousands of years. This was definitely not a good thing for the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. However, since the Dragon Emperor had made his decision, this matter could not be settled peacefully. The Myriad Demon Alliance had to give a suitable explanation and pay a certain price for this matter to be settled. Otherwise, where would the Xuanji Grotto put their face? Where would the Dragon Emperor's dignity be? In short, the Myriad Demon Alliance had to bleed. Unfortunately, only a few people understood this. Most people were frogs at the bottom of a well. They were just ordinary fools. As time passed, the battle between the two tigers took place in just a few days. The news had also spread throughout the Astral Source continent. The various regions of the northwest were filled with a palpitating and stifling atmosphere. No one knew where the news came from, but it was quickly spread by some people and some forces. Villainous Long Tian, who countless experts had searched the entire continent but failed to find, had actually reached an unspeakable agreement with the Myriad Demon Alliance and was being protected by the Myriad Demon Alliance. The wise and mighty Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had seen through Long Tian and the 10,000 Demon Alliance's scheme, and sent the heartless Divine King to capture Long Tian. Who would have thought that the Myriad Demon Alliance would be so arrogant and conceited, refusing to hand over Long Tian no matter what, even going as far as becoming enemies with the Xuanji Grotto and injuring the heartless Divine King. The Dragon Emperor was enraged by the 10,000 Demon League's arrogance, so he sent all the region lords and immortal kings to the Dark Water realm. It was not to annihilate the 10,000 Demon Alliance, but to force the 10,000 Demon Alliance to hand over the culprit, Long Tian, who had killed the innocent, and ask for forgiveness from the Dragon Emperor. After the news spread, the people of half of the continent finally came to a realization. No wonder Long Tian disappeared without a trace after he was hunted by the 10,000 Demon Alliance, and the experts who had been searching for him for 2 months failed to find him. It turned out that he had colluded with the 10,000 Demon Alliance and hid in the 10,000 Demon City. That was the safest place on the continent besides the Xuanji Grotto. No wonder the Dragon Emperor was enraged. It turned out that the 10,000 Demon Alliance was so arrogant that they dared to go against the Xuanji Grotto. In that case, it was reasonable for the Dragon Emperor to mobilize a large number of troops and experts to enter the Dark Water Realm. Most importantly, the Xuanji Grotto had made their stance clear. They were not going to annihilate the 10,000 Demon Alliance, but they were going to do it impartially and force the 10,000 Demon Alliance to hand over the culprit in Long Tian. At this point, the uneasy commoners finally calmed down. Previously, the people were still worried that the two tigers would fight and cause chaos on the Star Source continent. Blood would flow and lives would be lost. Now they were at ease. Since there would be no war, they could watch the show in peace. At the same time, far away in the center of the Star Source continent, in the sacred and mysterious Xuanji Grotto, it was still the same golden and dazzling palace. There were only 4 people in the study room with a heavy atmosphere. Sitting on the throne was a middle-aged man from the Dragon Clan who wore a fiery red robe. He had horns on his head and a crown on his head. He was the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. The 2 Divine Kings standing behind him were the Chief Steward, the Heartless Divine King, and the War Dragon King. As for the 3rd person in the study room, he was standing in front of the large desk with his head lowered. No one would have thought that this middle-aged man who looked respectful and even a little fearful was the Chongqi clan leader, Xue Shang. The 4 experts were silent. The study room was very quiet. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor looked at Xue Shang, and his lips curled into a playful smile. He then said, "Xue Shang, you don't have to act so fearful in front of me. You're pretending to be fearful. In my opinion, you're even more despicable." Obviously, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had known Xue Shang for many years and knew his character well. Although Xue Shang pretended to be fearful, he was actually very proud in his heart. After all, he was a 9th Heaven Realm Divine King, the Chongqi clan leader, and an ancient ferocious beast. Xue Shang did not feel awkward when the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor saw through his disguise. He cupped his hands and said, "Your Majesty has been in seclusion for hundreds of years. Now that you've come out, your cultivation is even stronger than before. Of course I respect you." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor could not be bothered to listen to his flattery and asked directly, "That day in the Star-Devouring Cave, are you sure that Long Tian's helper is the Myriad Demon Alliance Master?" Although Xue Shang had already explained this in the communication jade slip, this was a serious matter. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor still summoned Xue Shang and asked him face to face. Xue Shang did not dare to be careless and said solemnly, "I don't dare to lie to your Majesty. I remember what happened that day clearly, including all the details. Although the Myriad Demon Alliance has been hiding their aura, I'm 80% sure that it's him." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was silent for a while before he nodded and said calmly, "Since that's the case in Luoho Divine King's reaction, I can confirm it. However, I really don't understand how Long Tian, whose background is unknown, colluded with the 10,000 Demon Alliance. You should know that before that, the Myriad Demon Alliance had issued a bounty to kill Long Tian with great fanfare. Why did the Myriad Demon Alliance take the risk of offending me and hide Long Tian in the Myriad Demon City in the blink of an eye?" The Heartless Divine King, who had been standing behind the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor silently, reported at the right time, "We have used all means to investigate Long Tian's identity and background. I have found out that this person should be the disciple of the Heaven-Sealing Dragon Emperor more than 1,300 years ago. At that time, Long Tian appeared out of nowhere and shone brightly. He had the reputation of being the #1 genius in the world. However, for some unknown reason, he only appeared for slightly more than 100 years and then disappeared. Now, after 1,000 years, he suddenly appeared again and is already a 9th Heaven Realm Divine King." Chapter 37:12. Heaven-Sealing Dragon Emperor has never accepted any disciples in his life. However, He made an exception and accepted Long Tian as his disciple more than 1,000 years ago. Hearing the heartless divine king's report, the gold-sourced dragon emperor frowned and muttered to himself. After a moment of silence, he suddenly asked a question that seemed to be unrelated to the current situation. After heaven-sealing dragon emperor disappeared, where did his subordinates go? However, everyone present understood the meaning of this question. As such, the heartless divine king, the battle dragon king, and Xueshang's pupils shrank as a strange look flashed across their eyes. The heartless divine king's expression returned to normal as he replied respectfully. After Dark North took over the position of dragon emperor, he did not purge heaven-sealing dragon emperor's subordinates. After all, Dark North had a close relationship with the heavenly dragon divine palace, and had always considered himself as heaven-sealing dragon emperor's junior. However, heaven-sealing dragon emperor was indifferent and did not care for power. He did not have many trusted subordinates. The generals and commanders guarding the divine palace, the heavenly dragon guards who patrolled the world, and the various territorial lords remained and pledged their loyalty to Dark North. The gold-sourced dragon emperor frowned and thought for a moment before he asked coldly, I remember that heaven-sealing dragon emperor loved to travel the 4 seas and discuss Tao with those old dragons. The person who followed him was a skinny and gloomy old servant. The heartless divine king was stunned for a moment before he remembered this person. He quickly nodded and said, Indeed. However, that old servant was always quiet and did not have much of a presence. I had forgotten about him. That old servant was heaven-sealing dragon emperor's only trusted subordinate. His name was Ophiuchus, and it was said that he used to be an earth snake. Ha! The gold-sourced dragon emperor suddenly laughed. His eyes were cold as the corners of his mouth curled into a playful smile. The heartless divine king and the battle dragon king vaguely guessed something. Their expressions changed drastically as they were filled with shock. Xueshang seemed to have understood something as well. However, he lowered his head silently and did not dare to show any changes in his expression. The gold-sourced dragon emperor smiled and said, Both of you go. If it's really him, then everything makes sense. The battle dragon king suddenly sighed and said worriedly, however, if that's the case, then this is an unsolvable situation. I'm afraid that it will be difficult to resolve the situation and turn it into reality. Everyone present understood what this meant. The Gold Origin Dragon Monarch was furious. He personally issued an order and sent countless experts to the Dark Water Realm to exert pressure on the Myriad Demon Alliance. Their purpose was nothing more than to beat the 10,000 Demon Alliance and weaken its power and authority. This was to remind the people that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was the true master of this continent, and that the Myriad Demon Alliance would not be able to withstand a single blow. At the same time, the Xuanji Grotto wanted to kill Long Tian as an example to others. Kill this audacious maniac who had slaughtered all the domain masters to quell the discussions and panic of the people. However, if the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was right, the Myriad Demon Alliance would never hand over Long Tian. Since the Myriad Demon Alliance refused to obey, the Enigma Grotto could not leave with their tails between their legs. There would only be one outcome, and that was to turn the pretense into reality and start a real war. At the thought of this, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor frowned and his eyes flickered. He glanced at Xueshang and said, There's nothing for you to do here. You may leave. Xueshang's heart relaxed. He quickly bowed and prepared to leave. He also understood that the Dragon Emperor was discussing important matters with his confidants, and it was not suitable for him to listen. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor ordered, This matter started because of you. You will also go to the Dark Water Realm and wait for my orders. Xueshang was stunned for a moment. He recalled the heavenly oath he had made back then, and a bitter expression appeared on his face. However, he could not say it out loud now. He could only accept the order with cupped fists. After Xueshang left, the study returned to silence. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor smiled coldly and said expressionlessly, This is just my guess. I sent the two of you to try to verify it. It would be best if the Myriad Demon Alliance could be forced to hand over Long Tian. If it is really as I guessed, and the Myriad Demon Alliance is determined to be my enemy, then they will be eliminated. After all, the Rahu Divine King's true body is not here. It's just an avatar. The War Dragon King had always been in the war faction. He was good at leading troops in battle, unlike the Heartless Divine King who was good at scheming and gathering information. Previously, he was worried that the conflict between the two tigers would harm the common people and shake the foundation of the Myriad Demon Alliance. However, since the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had made up his mind, he no longer had any worries. He bowed and said, "Rest assured, Your Majesty. I will do my best and finish this in one fell swoop." If Xueshang was here, he would definitely be confused. Since the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had decided to eliminate the Myriad Demon Alliance, why didn't he do it himself? The Rahu Divine King in the Myriad Demon City was just an avatar. However, the Heartless Divine King and the War Dragon King were not peak Divine Kings. They were not confident of defeating the Rahu Divine King even if they worked together. If the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did it himself, he would definitely succeed. However, the War Dragon King and the Heartless Divine King did not think in this direction. This was because the two of them knew a secret. This was a secret that only belonged to the two of them and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. At this moment, the Heartless Divine King suddenly interrupted the War Dragon King and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's plan. "Your Majesty, things might not be so bad. This morning, I received a secret report from a spy in the Myriad Demon Alliance. The Mystical Grotto's intelligence network was even stronger than the Myriad Demon Alliance. Many years ago, the Mystical Grotto had planted many spies in the Myriad Demon Alliance. Some of these spies had already climbed to a very high position and were qualified to know some secrets. Of course, the Mystical Grotto did not only target the Myriad Demon Alliance. They had made similar arrangements in the other top forces. As the overlord of the Star Source continent, it was not as simple as having military power to control the entire continent. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was instantly interested and asked, "Oh? What's the news?" The Heartless Divine King's lips curled into a cold smile and said in a low voice, "According to the spies, the Rahu Divine King's residence has been secretly strengthened since 2 months ago. It's very tight. Furthermore, the Rahu Divine King personally ordered the spies in the Myriad Demon Alliance to secretly investigate a matter." "What matter?" The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor raised his eyebrows and asked again. The Heartless Divine King's smile became more and more playful as he answered, "The Myriad Demon Alliance is secretly investigating the whereabouts of a young man." After listening to the Heartless Divine King's report, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor suddenly smiled proudly. "Haha, it may seem like a small matter, but there's a deep meaning behind it. Heartless, your intuition is right. I think we can do something about it. However, before that, continue to put pressure on the Myriad Demon Alliance. The two of you don't waste any time. Hurry to the Dark Water region immediately." "Yes, Your Majesty." The Heartless Divine King and the War Dragon King walked to the study and bowed at the same time before turning and leaving the study. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor sat on his throne and looked at the sky outside through the window. The smile on his face became more playful. "This is getting more and more interesting. I wonder if you'll be able to surprise me?" Chapter 37:13. For 10 whole days, the northwest region of the Star Source continent was filled with tension. Many forces and god kings rushed over from all directions, entering the Dark Water domain and gathering around the Black Sea. Even though there might not be any connections or friendships between the various forces and experts, they all had the same goal. In these 10 days, many things happened that people didn't know about. But everyone knew that the 10,000 Demon Alliance that had been controlling the Black Sea for many years was about to face a calamity. Because Xuanji Grotto Heaven's General Manager Thoughtless God King and Martial War Dragon King had appeared at the Black Sea. This meant that Gold Origin Dragon Emperor had made up his mind to demand an explanation from the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Therefore, the factions and God King experts became more confident and sharpened their weapons. But the 10,000 Demon Alliance's attitude was also very firm. Facing Xuanji Grotto Heaven's pressure and the encirclement of various factions and experts, the 10,000 Demon Alliance showed no signs of bowing down. Before the army arrived, the 10,000 Demon Alliance had already retracted their defenses and gathered countless experts to defend the 10,000 Demon City and the Black Sea. In just a few days, countless battles occurred at the Black Sea. According to incomplete statistics, there were more than 30 battles in the 10 days. At least 200 elite warriors of the Myriad Demon League and 9 King God Realm warriors died tragically under the siege of the other forces and experts. Of course, the various factions also suffered heavy losses and paid the price of more than 300 lives. The majority among them were Divine Lord Realm powerhouses, but there were also more than a dozen Divine King Realm powerhouses. In addition, Thoughtless God King and War Dragon King were in charge of the Black Sea. They had sent many experts who were good at hiding to infiltrate the 10,000 Demon City. But unfortunately, no matter what methods they used, they couldn't infiltrate the 10,000 Demon City and were all killed. After 10 days, Thoughtless God King and War Dragon King lost their patience and continued to confront the 10,000 Demon City. The two of them personally led more than 40 God King experts and thousands of God Lord experts to attack the 10,000 Demon City. In the end, the 10,000 Demon Alliance didn't give in and didn't admit to the crime of harboring Long Tian. Godly King Luoho personally led a few elders, more than 30 godly kings, and more than 800 godly lords. They stood in formation outside Myriad Face City and defended with all their might. The two sides negotiated for an hour, pointing fingers at each other. In the end, they failed to reach an agreement and could only fight to the death. This battle was the largest battle in the past 1,000 years, with the most number of experts involved. Those who were fortunate enough to participate in the great battle felt even more proud and arrogant. The various forces that did not participate in the battle were also very excited and expectant. The result did not disappoint the spectators. The Xuanji Grotto's side had the advantage in numbers. They charged forward valiantly, as if they were determined to conquer the 1,000 Demon City. The 10,000 Demon Alliance, on the other hand, was united and resisting the enemy at all costs. This world-shaking and magnificent battle continued for an entire half a day. Dazzling 5-colored divine light illuminated the area within a radius of 100,000 miles. All kinds of dazzling lights and shadows, as well as a sky full of saber light and sword rain, also covered the entire Demon City, covering a radius of 50,000 miles. As the two sides fought fiercely, the shockwaves from the collision of divine skills turned into 5-colored ripples that spread out, stirring up the Black Sea and creating huge waves that were thousands of feet high. Such a tragic and shocking battle was a feast for the eyes of the spectators. It also made them tremble with fear, as if their hearts were in their throats. This was because the battle was still difficult to determine the outcome of the battle. It was very anxious. The Xuanji Grotto side had paid a heavy price, sacrificing hundreds of experts, but still failed to break through the 10,000 Demon Alliance's defense line. They had used all kinds of tactics and methods. However, Godly King Luoho and the hundreds of experts of the 10,000 Demon Alliance did not back down. The defensive formation that covered Myriad Face City also flashed with divine light, but it was still intact. Only when the blood-red sun set behind the mountains did the battle finally come to an end. As the attacking side, the Xuanji Grotto had naturally failed. They did not break through the defense line, nor did they kill their way into Myriad Face City. They even paid the price of more than 600 lives. There were more than a dozen Godly King experts among them. The Xuanji Grotto side had suffered heavy losses. Even the Heartless Godly King and the Battle Dragon King were injured. However, the 10,000 Demon Alliance's outcome was also tragic. Not only were more than 400 experts killed, but more than 20 Godly Kings had also fallen in the battle. The 400 or so survivors were also severely injured. Their strength was weak and they were in a sorry state. From the number of casualties on both sides, the Xuanji Grotto should have lost, and the 10,000 Demon Alliance should have won. However, in reality, both sides could only be considered to be tied. The 10,000 Demon Alliance had it worse. After all, the Xuanji Grotto was attacking, while the 10,000 Demon Alliance was defending. Even so, such a tragic and glorious result still shocked countless people. The various forces that had been summoned by the Xuanji Grotto to besiege the 10,000 Demon Alliance were all shocked by the strength of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. In the past, they had only heard that the 10,000 Demon Alliance was extremely powerful and could cover the sky with one hand. Today, after experiencing it personally, the various forces knew that this was true. Other than the Xuanji Grotto, the 10,000 Demon Alliance was the #1 force in the Star Source continent. Even the Sky-bearing sect, the Overlord of the South, could not be compared to the 10,000 Demon Alliance. This conclusion made the various forces secretly shocked. Their fighting spirit and spirit were thwarted, and they no longer dared to underestimate the 10,000 Demon Alliance, much less launch an attack. After the Heartless God King and the War Dragon King led everyone to retreat, the shore of the Black Sea regained its peace. The various forces that had been observing the battle and lying in ambush also obediently hid in the dark, continuing to maintain their silence. After nightfall, the 10,000 Demon City regained its peace, as if nothing had happened. On the shore of the Black Sea, on a mountain peak 1,000 miles away from the sea, two figures stood on the mountain peak, blending into the night, quiet and cold. Halfway up the mountain, there were more than 100 guards on guard. Among them, there were more than a dozen godly king experts. Clearly, the two black-clothed experts on the mountain peak were of high status. These two were the Heartless God King and the War Dragon King. At this moment, the two of them looked normal on the surface. However, their slightly pale faces, slight fluctuations, and slightly chaotic auras indicated that the two of them were injured. The two of them stood quietly on the mountain peak, looking in the direction of the Black Sea for a long time. Finally, the War Dragon King spoke first. In the end, we underestimated Luoho's strength and methods. In the battle during the day, the two of them did not participate in the killing of the soldiers. Their goal was to besiege the Luoho Divine King. The two of them originally thought that the Luoho Divine King was just an avatar. Even if they could not kill the Luoho Divine King with their combined attacks, they could severely injure him. However, reality shattered their confidence. The Luoho Divine King fought against two alone and still injured them, winning. The Heartless God King frowned and sighed. The stronger Luohos rebound, the more it proves our judgment that Long Tian is in the 10,000 Demon City. It's a pity that His Majesty, the Dragon Emperor, cannot take action personally. Otherwise, Luoho will definitely die. Chapter 37:14. At the same time, within the Thousand Demon City, in the luxurious Thousand Demon Divine Palace, in the same spacious and dignified study, there were 5 people in a meeting. Sitting on the large chair behind the desk was naturally God King Luoho. He had already regained his original appearance. He was a burly man with long purple-black hair. As for the other 4 God Kings, they were all standing respectfully in the study. These 4 people were all high-level divine kings, and in the great battle during the day, they had all suffered either light or heavy injuries. The leader was Great Elder Huxinyue, followed by Second Elder, Third Elder Ao Jining and Fourth Elder. The Thousand Demon Alliance had 7 elders, but these 4 were the most trusted and valued by God King Luoho. Although God King Luoho was deep in thought, he remained silent. The 4 elders' injuries were not light, but they endured their injuries without any impatience. They did not dare to make a sound for fear of disturbing God King Luoho. After a long while, God King Luoho said, "After this battle, this matter should be over." God King Heartless and War Dragon King joined forces, but they still could not enter the Thousand Demon City. As long as the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor does not intervene, they have no chance of winning. Huxinyue understood his meaning and asked in disbelief, "Alliance Master, it seems like we won today's battle, but it's actually a draw." Profound Grotto ordered the various factions to gather so many experts. How could they just give up like this? Third Elder Ao Jining also spoke, expressing his doubts. "Alliance Master, even if the various factions do not attack, they will definitely not let this matter rest. They will definitely find ways to harass and attack us. If this matter ends here and they leave just like that, wouldn't the Enigma Utopia lose all face?" Second Elder and Fourth Elder did not speak, but their thoughts were basically the same. God King Luoho smiled and said, "The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor is not a fool. He already predicted that the Thousand Demon Alliance would not be able to wipe them out in one fell swoop. Today's attack was just a test. If they could enter the Thousand Demon City, they would definitely take the opportunity to eradicate the Thousand Demon Alliance. But if the attack failed, they would have to retreat. This was because the Xuanji Grotto could afford to fail once and use other methods to regain their dignity in the future. However, they could not afford to lose face a second time. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor also knew that such a large army would only provoke the Myriad Demon Alliance to fight back with all their might. Compared to attacking a city, defending a city is naturally more advantageous. The Black Sea was the headquarters of the Myriad Demon League that had been operating for hundreds of years. If the Myriad Demon League were to defend the city, the Xuanji Grotto would have to send out double or even triple the forces to break the Myriad Demon City. Unfortunately, it was impossible for the Xuanji Wonderland to gather such a powerful force. Moreover, the Enigma Grotto did not have many direct descendants. Most of the divine kings came from all over the place. They were the leaders of various regions and forces. There were indeed a lot of them, but they were not as united as the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Seeing that the four elders had fallen silent and were mulling over his words, God King Luoho continued, "Although we managed to defend Myriad Fiend City and repel the Profound Secrets Grotto's attack, we were still able to defend the Myriad Fiend City. However, this only made the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor even more certain that Long Tian was in the Myriad Demon City. Moreover, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor will also be determined to eliminate us." The four elders nodded to show that they understood. Hu Xinhue frowned and asked, "Alliance Master, what should we do next?" God King Luoho frowned and thought for a while. Then he instructed, "Remain vigilant and continue to patrol until all of their people have retreated. Although the Profound Secrets Grotto will not attack again, they will not retreat with their tails between their legs. My guess is that since they can't do anything to the Myriad Demon City, they will definitely destroy the Myriad Demon League's branches and peripheral industries. Whether it is to vent their anger or to vent their anger, they will definitely find some excuse." The second elder was in charge of the various branches and peripheral industries. He was immediately filled with worry and asked, "Alliance Master, should I immediately lead people to protect the various branches and industries?" "No need." God King Luoho waved his hand and said, "The Profound Secrets Grotto needs to vent their anger. If they want to destroy those branches and industries, then so be it. After all, we will be able to rebuild them in a few years. However, if you lead people to protect them, you will be spreading our strength. It is the same as sending people to their deaths." The second elder was filled with unwillingness, but there was nothing he could do. He could only sigh and say, "It is a pity that our time of development is too short. We cannot fight the Profound Secrets Grotto head-on. If we were given another 1,000 years, we might be able to overturn the Profound Secrets Grotto." God King Luoho smiled again and said patiently, "No, you are all wrong. You have to look further. The enmity between our league and the Profound Secrets Grotto must be determined. However, the key to victory does not lie in the number of forces and industries under our control. The true deciding factor is between the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and me. When the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor personally makes his move, that will be the true decisive moment." The four elders were stunned. After thinking carefully, they all nodded in agreement. Indeed, if God King Luoho was killed by the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, the Myriad Demon League would be leaderless and would be quickly devoured and destroyed. If the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was killed by God King Luoho, the Profound Secrets Grotto would also fall into chaos and become a pile of loose sand. At that time, it would be easy for God King Luoho to seize the position of overlord of the continent. The study was very quiet and the atmosphere was somewhat stifling. Seeing the gloomy and downcast expressions of the four elders, God King Rahu smiled and said, "Everyone, there's no need to worry. Do what you need to do. Although I am not as strong as the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, I will not be defeated so easily. Moreover, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor must have his reasons for not daring to make his move personally." The four elders did not understand why God King Luoho was so certain. However, since their leader had said so, the four of them were naturally relieved. "We will take our leave." After a while, the elders bowed and left. Only the third elder, Ao Jining, stayed behind and reported to God King Luoho, "Alliance leader, There is still no news about the matter you instructed us to investigate. The Profound Secrets Grotto is our main suspect. However, our spies and informants are unable to infiltrate the Profound Secrets Grotto for now. This mission is too difficult. I'm afraid it will not be completed in a few years. God King Luoho nodded slightly and said, "How can it be so easy to infiltrate and investigate a Peak God King's cave abode? This matter is not urgent. As long as you do not slack off and continue investigating, it will be fine." Ao Jining hurriedly cupped his fists in acknowledgement. God King Luoho gave him a few more instructions and inquired about some matters before letting him go. Only God King Luoho was left in the study. It was silent again. God King Luoho stared at the night sky outside the window. After pondering for a long time, he muttered to himself, "I hope he becomes a Peak God King soon. Only then will we have hope. In this world, only Peak God Kings are qualified to know these secrets." Chapter 37:15. In the next half a month, the Thousand Demon City was as stable as a mountain. Not only was the defensive formation activated, but there were also countless guards patrolling the area. There were even many spies, assassins, and guards around the Black Sea. The entire Myriad Demon Alliance was still in a tense state. There was not the slightest relaxation. The various factions that were waiting for orders around the Black Sea did not show themselves easily either. Although there were occasional conflicts between the two sides, it was only a small-scale battle. However, these were all small-scale battles, and the number of casualties was not high, so it did not affect the overall situation. The situation was just as Divine King Luoho had guessed. After the defeat in that great battle, the Heartless Divine King and the Battle Dragon King ceased all activity and no longer launched a forceful attack. In half a month, the various factions and experts around the Black Sea also gradually retreated. After 15 days, the Heartless Divine King, the Battle Dragon King, and the Xuanji Grotto Heaven's direct disciples left silently. They did not return to the Xuanji Grotto Heaven directly. Instead, they went to the various regions in the northwest to carry out a mission. There was only one goal: to destroy the Thousand Demon Alliance's branches and take over the Thousand Demon Alliance's businesses. Even if they failed in their attack on the Thousand Demon City, they would not let the Thousand Demon Alliance off easy. This was to vent their anger, and to maintain the Xuanji Grotto Heaven's reputation. The Gold Source Dragon Emperor had already predicted this outcome, and had prepared an explanation. The Thousand Demon Alliance occupies the northwest. They do not care about the well-being of their people, but are selfish and have harmed the people of various races. They are the shame of the Star Source continent. The cruel and bloodthirsty Long Tian who killed the innocent should be judged by the Xuanji Grotto Heaven. However, the Thousand Demon Alliance did not care about their morals and reputation. They protected Long Tian, which is a heinous crime. However, the wise and mighty Dragon Emperor is kind and benevolent. Since the Thousand Demon Alliance has many members, it is not appropriate to treat them all the same and kill them all. Therefore, the Xuanji Grotto Heaven will destroy the Thousand Demon Alliance's branches, and kill them as a punishment. I hope the Thousand Demon Alliance will take this as a warning and hand over Long Tian as soon as possible. Do not make a mistake. 5 days later, the Thousand Demon Alliance's 9 branches in 9 regions were all destroyed by the Xuanji Grotto Heaven's experts. More than 1,000 Alliance members and core members were killed by the Xuanji Grotto Heaven's experts. Following that, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor issued a decree that spread across the Star Source continent, revealing the crimes of the Myriad Demon Alliance and the corresponding punishments. However, this was only a superficial job to maintain the dignity of the Xuanji Grotto. However, there were many fools in the world and ordinary citizens were the easiest to fool. Thus, they believed the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's decree and applauded. Only the forces in the northwest and the experts who had participated in the encirclement knew the truth. However, no one was stupid enough to announce the truth and slap the Xuanji Grotto in the face. Most importantly, now that things had developed to this point, the enmity between the Myriad Demon Alliance and the Xuanji Grotto had already been established. One day in the future, a victor would be decided between the two. Therefore, the truth was no longer important. With the Demon City as the center, The entire dark water region finally calmed down after more than a month of turmoil. Although the branches of the 10,000 Demon Alliance in the 9 neighboring domains had been destroyed, causing the 10,000 Demon Alliance to lose a lot of manpower and wealth, it was still a huge loss. However, all of this was still within God King Luoho's expectations and control. It did not harm the foundation of the Myriad Demon Alliance. The subsequent recovery and reconstruction work was also progressing quickly. It was estimated that the alliance would be restored to its original state in 3 to 5 years. Therefore, the 9 surrounding regions did not cause too much of a commotion. As the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's decree spread across the continent, the matter came to an end. The turmoil of the past month was directly related to Ji Tianxing, who had been cultivating in seclusion in the distorted spacetime, but also had nothing to do with it. He had been cultivating in seclusion and had not been disturbed by anyone. 1.5 months had passed in the outside world, but he had been cultivating in the distorted spacetime for 6 years. 6 years was enough for him to do many things. First, he refined more than 10 quintessence fragments and obtained more than 10 divine Tao laws to raise his strength to the peak of the 6th God King realm. After that, he consumed the 9-turn stellar rhyme pill that he had kept for a long time to break through to the 7th God King realm. Back then, when Kenshin had broken through to the upper God King realm in the God world, he had cultivated in seclusion for 9 years before he succeeded. This was the biggest gap on the path to the peak of the God King realm. Ji Tianxing thought that he would be able to break through in about 5 years. With the cultivation experience of his previous life, coupled with his deep foundation and the support of the 9-turn stellar rhyme pill, he would be able to break through. However, things had gone much smoother than he had imagined. He only attempted to break through 19 times, and after spending 3 years he successfully broke through 7th God King realm. From this moment onwards, he was an upper God King who had mastered 750 divine Tao laws. His strength, quintessence fragments, and battle prowess had all undergone a qualitative leap. As a result, his overall strength had increased by 8 times. Although he could not claim that he was invincible under the God Emperor, the current him was not much different from Kenshin when he was at his peak in his previous life. More accurately, when he had used all his trump cards, he had 80% of Kenshin's strength at his peak. Undoubtedly, this was very exciting. However, Ji Tianxing was not excited. He calmly meditated and cultivated for half a year to strengthen his divine Tao foundation. Then, he entered Kenshin's tomb in his body. At the end of the cold wasteland, he carefully studied the heaven-destroying sword formation under the fog of chaos. After entering the upper God King realm, he urgently needed to derive the 5th stage of the heaven-destroying divine art. If he could not determine the technique as soon as possible, his future cultivation would be affected and his progress would be slowed down. At the end of the wasteland, he slashed a few thousand times into the fog of chaos, revealing more than half of the heaven-destroying sword formation. He stood in the air above the wasteland and stared at the heaven-destroying sword formation, which spanned tens of thousands of miles, for half a month. When he had an answer in his heart, he left Kenshin's tomb. It was late at night again. The light in God King Luoho's study was soft. There were 2 people in the study discussing something. Sitting on the large chair behind the desk was Ji Tianxing. Standing in front of him was God King Luoho. Given God King Luoho's strength and experience, he could naturally tell that the young master's cultivation had improved greatly after a month of seclusion. Congratulations, young master. You have achieved great success in your divine art, and your cultivation is even greater than before. God King Luoho was happy and excited from the bottom of his heart. This was because he hoped that Ji Tianxing would grow quickly, and it would be best if he could become a peak God King as soon as possible. Ji Tianxing nodded, then asked with a smile, Ophiuchus, have you prepared the materials I asked you to collect? God King Luoho hurriedly took out an interspatial ring and handed it to him, saying, I gathered all the materials half a month ago. I was just waiting for young master to come out of seclusion. Ji Tianxing took the interspatial ring and thanked him with a smile, then asked, Has the mysterious paradise acted in this month? Tell me about the casualties of the Myriad Demon Alliance. Chapter 37:16. God King Luoho was very patient. He reported everything that had happened to Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing was silent for a while after hearing the story. He stared at God King Luoho and asked, "If I hadn't appeared, the Myriad Demon Alliance wouldn't have suffered such a calamity. The Profound Secrets Grotto destroyed 9 of your branches. You won't blame me for that, will you?" God King Luoho hurriedly bowed and said sincerely, "Young master, you're exaggerating. The rise of the Myriad Demon Alliance threatened the position of Xuanji Grotto. Even if you hadn't appeared, Xuanji Grotto would have found an excuse to attack the Myriad Demon Alliance. I didn't have much ambition when I established the Myriad Demon Alliance. Now that you've returned, I'll naturally prioritize your safety. Some sacrifices are unavoidable." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and stared at God King Luoho. He asked, "You really don't have any ambition? Don't you want to use the Myriad Demon Alliance to defeat Xuanji Grotto and become the overlord of the Star Source continent?" God King Luoho looked straight at him without any change in expression. His eyes were clear, without any pretense or concealment. He replied, "I'm already a peak God King and have established the Myriad Demon Alliance. Even though I've racked my brains and taken great risks to become the master of Xuanji Grotto and control the entire Star Source continent. Actually, there's not much change or improvement. Peak God King is already the limit of cultivation. No matter how much power and wealth I have, it's meaningless. The reason why I'm still in charge of the 10,000 Demon Alliance is that I want to provide a place for the sinners and the demons of low status. At the same time, this organization can work for me and investigate old masters' tracks and clues." God King Luoho's tone was calm, as if he had seen through everything. It seemed that when one reached his level, all glory, wealth, and fame were like fleeting clouds. Ji Tianxing frowned and said, "Could it be that in the past 1,000 years, there hasn't been a single expert in the Dragon Realm who surpassed the God King realm and reached the God Emperor realm?" "No," God King Luoho replied firmly. He then asked doubtfully, "God Emperor realm? What realm is that? Is there a whole new realm above the Divine King realm?" Ji Tianxing nodded and explained, "The realm above Divine King. I'm also not clear on how profound it is. However, there are a few people who broke through the Divine King realm and reached that realm. They call themselves the God Emperor realm." Luoho God King's eyes lit up with hope and shock. He asked, "Is this true?" Ji Tianxing thought for a moment and said seriously, "I haven't seen them yet, so I can't be sure. But according to my deduction, it should be 80% credible." The Rahu Divine King's eyes grew brighter and brighter as he asked, "The Dragon Realm doesn't have such a powerhouse." "The God Emperor you speak of should be a powerhouse from the God Realm, right?" "Yes." Ji Tianxing nodded and asked again, "Why were there 5 God Emperors in the God Realm, and none in the Dragon Realm in the past 1,000 years? Logically speaking, the many races in the Dragon Realm shouldn't be weaker than the God race, right?" The light in Luoho God King's eyes dimmed, and he smiled bitterly. He nodded and said, "Young master's question is also the target of this old servant's investigation and research for the past few hundred years. At the same time, this is also the matter that the peak God Kings of the Dragon Realm are most helpless and resentful about." "Then, have you found anything after several hundred years of investigation?" Luoho God King nodded and said in a low voice, "I have some clues. This old servant is 80% sure that this matter is caused by heavenly sin." Ji Tianxing thought for a moment and asked, "Heavenly sin? The sinners you speak of? I wonder how they offended the heavens and were punished and shackled, unable to surpass the Divine King realm?" Luoho God King nodded solemnly and said, "At present, this old servant has investigated more than 30 races, all sinners punished by heavenly sin. I don't know how many sinners have gone extinct or have yet to be investigated. The sinners are led by the Dragon race, the Phoenix race, and the Qilin race. There are also a few of the 7 noble clans of the monster race, including the Chongqi race and the Taotai race." Ji Tianxing nodded and indicated for him to continue. Luoho God King continued to explain, "The Phoenix race and the Qilin race's reproductive abilities are not as good as the Dragon races. Early in the ancient era, their numbers were not as great as the Dragon races. After being punished by heavenly sin, the Phoenix race and the Qilin race rapidly weakened and their numbers plummeted. Today, it is difficult to find traces of the phoenix race and the Chilean race in the world. Only the dragon race, with their large numbers and powerful reproductive abilities, can continue to this day and still control the dragon realm. As for the other sinners, they can't even protect themselves and are gradually going extinct, not to mention surpassing the divine king realm. After Ji Tianqing heard this, he frowned and pondered for a moment. Then he stretched out 2 fingers and said, "Your analysis is very reasonable. The sinful clan should be true. However, I have 2 questions. First, the sinners who offended heavenly sin are shackled and punished by heavenly Tao, unable to surpass the divine king realm. What about the other races? They are not sinners, so why hasn't anyone surpassed the divine king realm since ancient times? Second, why hasn't there been a single god emperor in the dragon realm, but 5 have appeared in the god realm?" In fact, Ji Tianqing had always believed that the 5 god emperors in the god realm were able to appear in the past 1,000 years because of the eternal heavenly book. However, this matter could not be confirmed, so he wanted to hear if God King Rahu had any opinions. The 2 questions did not stump God King Rahu. He already had an answer in his heart, so he smiled and explained, "Young master, the 2 questions you mentioned are actually the same question to this old servant. Among the races in the dragon realm, many sinners have been punished by heavenly sin, unable to surpass the divine king realm, and are gradually going extinct. However, what is even more frightening is that the entire dragon realm has been punished by heavenly Tao." God King Rahu smiled, his tone very certain. Ji Tianqing immediately frowned, full of surprise. The entire dragon realm has been punished by heavenly Tao? This conclusion was not only shocking but also horrifying. God King Rahu nodded solemnly, saying, "This conclusion is not just this old servant's alone. This old servant has discussed it with the other 2 dragon emperors, and they also agree with this conclusion." Ji Tianqing thought for a moment, then asked, "You mean the Crimson Dragon Emperor and the Black Dragon Emperor?" God King Rahu smiled and nodded, saying, "Who else could it be other than those 2? Back then, when Old Master roamed the 5 continents and 4 seas, he had the closest relationship with them." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly, saying, "In that case, as long as you stay in the dragon realm, you will never surpass the divine king realm and reach the God Emperor realm? You can say that." God King Rahu nodded again. Ji Tianqing continued, "So your original body went to the outer realm not only to search for Master's whereabouts, but also to search for an opportunity to break through the God Emperor realm?" "Yes." God King Rahu nodded again, saying, "It is not just this old servant. The Crimson Dragon Emperor and the Black Dragon Emperor are also in the outer realm. This old servant even suspects that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's original body is not in the dragon realm." You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.